blessings that you provide us each and every day. I ask that you help those that are in need this time of year. I ask that you watch over our military, firefighters, and police as they watch over us. In Jesus' name.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a full vote tonight, Marion?
Thank you.
We do.
Thank you.
You must be giving out cookies or something. The agenda's before you, any additions, subtractions, deletions?
Mr. Mayor, I move the agenda is approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded for the discussion. Not hearing all, fair say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Citizen comments? A lot of citizens here, there's a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. Lots of opportunity to talk. Without any,
Mr. Mayor, I have a citizen comment to read into the record.
sure.
Okay, this came to the mayor and the council members along with some city staff late this evening, requested to be read into the record. Dear Liberty Lake City Council, currently we have a proposal for $1.5 million to replace the netting on the driving range on the city-owned golf course. Add to this nearly $200,000 for an irrigation system and the possibility of around $4 million for renovation replacement of the clubhouse, and we are approaching $7 million to spend on the golf course. Those dollars could and should be put to use in other ways. Don't get me wrong, I like golf and used to golf a lot. I'm just not sure that $1.5 million is a worthwhile investment in this course. At $9 a bucket for a range of balls, how many buckets would need to be sold to pay for the new nets? I come up with 166,666 buckets. How long would it take to sell that many buckets to even break even to pay for the net? Liberty Lake currently has 3 golf courses within the city limits. Maybe it is time to rethink whether or not the city of Liberty Lake should be in the golf course business at all. Some options to think about. Short term, I think there has to be options to fix the current nets to a degree that minimizes legal exposure to the city. Remember, the houses that built along the edge of a golf course have to take some of the responsibility for protecting their own homes. Another short-term fix would be to close the city-owned driving range and let people use existing driving ranges at the nearby Meadowood and Liberty Lake County golf courses. I understand that the city course would lose revenue from not only buckets of balls, but from lessons as well. Long-term, maybe the city should close the entire golf course and turn it into a city campus with parks, city hall, and other city facilities all in one place. I simply ask that you make this decision from a business perspective. An investment of $1.5 million for nets will not pay for itself. City of Liberty Lake resident Miles E. Crawford.
Okay. Any other comments? Not hearing any, we're going to go on with our presentations, employee recognition. Right? I have before me, Karnak, right?
Goes going back to old school.
Oh, back to old school.
Sorry, I just got to change
Well, we're going to start with RJ coming in.
And Mayor, I was just going to mention, if you're in the audience, if you're in the foyer and you'd like to come in, we do have seats right in the front row, saved especially for you. So come on in.
Now you feel like you have to because you won't do it.
Huh?
Thanks, Keith.
Okay. We're going from the youngest to the oldest. Not necessarily in age or anything like that, but the 5-year to the 15-year, 20-year, 15. So our 5-year, the junior on the block, is Katie Allen. Come on down.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, good.
Can you imagine?
I cannot.
It seems like 10 or 15 times. No, one of our best hires.
Oh,
Absolutely, outstanding. Good job, 5 years. It just seems like yesterday. Right?
okay.
You already worked on your
And I just have to say, I know you weren't going to give me any time to talk.
Oh,
'Cause I have to listen.
Excuse me.
But I just have to tell you what a personal and professional pleasure it is to work for Mayor Peterson, all of the city council members, and our staff. We just have a great team here at City Hall, at our library, and at our police department. It's just a professional honor for me to work here. I love our city. I love what's happening in our city, and I love being part of it. So thank you for the pleasure of working here. I really appreciate
We
it.
have the good fortune of having Katie spend 20-some years with City of Spokane,
25,
25 years with City of Spokane.
Bruce County,
How many years with San Jose? 10?
10.
10 years with San Jose. And now 5 years with the City of Liberty Lake. We're
Don't add it
fine,
up.
we're fine tuning her. What a cool thing. So now we're on to 10 years. It just seems like yesterday.
I think we have.
There should be one more
more
5.
There's another 5.
Another
in
5
there.
there? That's it.
She got 2.
Oh, there it is. Rudy.
Rudy.
Rudy got out of sync.
Rudy and I are the same age group.
Rudy, yeah.
Rudy is a retread from Genie. They ran out of building over there for a while, so we took him over here. He came over here, so congratulations, 5 years, it's just been, it seemed like yesterday.
Thank you very much.
Does a great job, and the builders love it, and actually the homeowners love it because they're making sure that all the properties are in good shape before they're taken over.
Thank you very much.
They enjoy it. Now we're on to 10 years. And so we have Brad Daines. Where's Brad? Where's
He's got.
he's got.
All right.
Just seemed like yesterday, right? 10 years. When you first came on? You know, what was that? 2007? So, well, congratulations for being here for 10 years. We hope you'll be here for another 10 to 15 years. And I know you'll probably say, I'm getting out of here. You know? Brad, thank you very much for your service. And Darren Morgan, where's Darren at? You want to start?
Oh, I see that.
Year 2007 too, so wow. So you'll be 11 years next year, right?
There you go.
You haven't scratched the car, did you scratch the car?
Yes.
Just a little.
There's just a little neck?
Very heavy neck.
Okay, well, we'll overlook that for 10 years.
I appreciate it.
So, congratulations, thank you very much for being there. And Rhonda. All right. That 10 years. Wow, I tell you, you know, I mean, our library would be totally different without you.
This is true.
Really, I mean, the people love you and, you know, they really appreciate your service. And it just seems like time just flies.
My little girl was 11 when I started. She's 21 now.
Well, thank you very much. And then, let's see if there's money attached to this. Oh, so what these guys do, for 10 years, you get is a gift value of $60, is that what it
It'll be
says
added,
there? So, and who has made this a guaranteed provision within the group is Anne Marie Gale. She controls the money. You guard the money. And so, on behalf of the city, we just appreciate the fact that you have been a great steward of our cash.
That's right.
And I gotta tell you that Anne Marie, if you go back in her room, her office back there, on her light switch is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anne Marie, did you watch the game? Tell me about it.
Yikes.
I was betting on, I took your advice, I was betting on you. I was betting with my grandson, he lives in Boston.
But you bet against it because
Well, I know that's true too, but I mean, I just wanted to let you know.
I know how much you lose.
Not enough. Too much, I'm not sure. Anyway, congratulations again, thank you very much for your service. We appreciate it. And here's another one I like to give. Ann, I remember, where did you go?
All right, yeah.
About 10 years and 2 weeks ago that we hired you, right? That was the first week of December.
December 5th.
Yeah, I remember that. So it was a real pleasure to hire you and bring you on board. I only get to spend about 3 weeks with you then. I've got the last 5 years with you, so that's been great. And really appreciate all that you've done for us. And, you know, the city runs on money, right, and paper. That's the money side, and this is the paper side. And make sure that we get all the paperwork done correctly, properly. And you got a award for Clerk of the Year, or
Municipal Clerk of the Month.
or
Yes,
Municipal Clerk of the Month, when was it?
last
Last year. So I mean,
Good.
she's been recognized by her peers for outstanding service. So ours is just a benefit of 10 years with the service, and thank you very much. And you'll see why this is my favorite. Well, they're all my favorite. But, Mick? Here we are again. We've both been around here as long as dirt. Longer than dirt? Well, I remember back in the dinosaur age, so. But God, we sure have appreciated you. You know,
It's been wonderful.
he's been here, you know, as a rock for Liberty Lake and taking care of our community. And if you had to call on somebody, if you needed something, you called Mick and he responded and turned out. Whether it be the parks or lawns, the streets, whatever it was. I mean, back in the day,
Yeah.
it was everything, right? We were like our 6th or 7th employee.
Pretty close, yeah.
Very close to that, so, anyway, I can't say enough about Mick, and thank you very much for being part of our team. He's just been there, like I say, a rock for Liberty Lake, so. Mick, congratulations. So, we're done with the awards. I guess it's appropriate to say that we've hired good quality people, that we provide a good workplace, and the city and the community are very indebted to your services, no matter what you do for our city. And whether you've been here a month or 2, or 15 years, or maybe a little bit longer, thank you. So, thanks, guys. With that said, we're on to the mayor and city council or community awards. Police awards.
Thank
There's Chief.
So, get started.
We have city staff on
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Merry Christmas to all of you. Merry Christmas to the community. Thank you for being here tonight. One of our favorite times of the year to honor some of our officers for the great work they've done throughout the year. We have 3 awards to present tonight, and the first one will be the Sergeant's Award. So I have our 2 sergeants up here that'll make that presentation. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say for the Sergeant's Award, this is kind of this first year that we've had 2 sergeants in order to make the decision on the award, so that's kind of nice. So the one that we decided to go with this year falls under Jeff, so I'm going to give the floor over to him so he can actually make the presentation for the award. But I'd like to say that he's probably one of the second to the top guys we were looking at, and it came down to a decision on who was going to be the Officer of the Year and who was going to receive the Sergeants of the Year award, and we decided to go with the Sergeant of the Year award with the person Jeff's going to talk about right now. Thank you very much.
Hello. The 2017 Sergeant's Award is presented to Officer Jordan Bowman. I'm going to steal something from the chief here. Jordan Bowman came to us on the Chief's Steal-A-Cop program from another agency. So, the 2017 Sergeant Award is presented to Officer Jordan Bowman for exceptional performance of duty while serving as a patrol officer for the City of Liberty Lake. Officer Bowman has only been with our department for approximately 8 months, yet his diligence and dedication to service teamwork, to include his proactive style of policing our community, has contributed to the city's overall safety and the individual safety of all citizens who call Liberty Lake their home. Officer Bowman conducts his daily responsibilities and duties in accordance with our department's mission of upholding the law fairly and firmly, to prevent crime, to pursue and bring to justice those who break the law, to keep the peace, and to provide quality police services to the community by promoting a safe environment through police and citizen interaction. He does this with an emphasis on fairness, respect, empathy, and dignity, and professionalism. Officer Bowman's proactive, self-initiated approach to law enforcement has netted approximately 1,050 individual incidents handled by him this year, resulting in numerous physical arrests, criminal citations, and traffic infractions issued. Officer Bowman, you have promoted the department's mission with great enthusiasm, integrity, and professionalism, while keeping in mind the values we share with our community. This brings great credit upon you, the City of Liberty Lake, and the Liberty Lake Police Department.
Congratulations.
You want to share it? Thank you. Jordan's vice here, Kathleen. Thank you for being here. Okay, a couple more awards. So the next award we have is the Chiefs Award. So I am proud this year to present the 2017 Chiefs Award to Master Police Officer Brad Davis. Officer Dynas is instrumental in the success of our agency as he is our lead background investigator and our reserve police officer coordinator. He brings new ideas to the organization that improve efficiency and police operations. Officer Dynas has demonstrated good decision-making and leadership skills in 2017. His willingness to go the extra mile to provide excellent customer service, even when responding to calls that are not necessarily a law enforcement issue, and we all love those. He is involved in an organization called Behind the Badge Foundation, that provides support for police departments, individual officers, and their families in times of crisis. And because of all of those things, and all he does for our organization and this community, proud to present the 2017 Chiefs Award for Brad Davis. You good? No hug? No hug? Okay. Brad Weiss here, Kelsey, Director, talking. How are you? Good. Thank you for being here. Cody Query. Thanks for being here. Last award for the police department tonight is our Officer of the Year award. This should be no surprise. I'm not sure how many years in a row it has been, but the 2017 Officer of the Year award is presented to Master Police Officer Mike Bogenreef. His plaque's the easiest because they already have all this stuff on file with the nice. So Officer Bogenreef exemplifies our department vision, mission, goals, values, and objectives. He is the most proactive officer. Jordan's catching up. But most proactive officer in our agency and fully embraces our community-oriented policing philosophy. His participation in the Target Zero Task Force is commendable as he has removed dozens of impaired drivers from our roadways. He is an instructor for our Too Good for Drugs program at the Liberty Lake Elementary School and is a featured presenter at the Hub 360 after-school program that is targeting at-risk youth in our area. He continues to volunteer his time to Special Olympics of Washington, to the Law Enforcement Torch Run campaign. Because of all those reasons, he's a father and a great guy. Is your wife?
No, my kids are.
Oh, they're kids. Yeah. Good. So anyway, I'm proud to present the 2015 Officer of the Year award to Michael.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Forgot to say that, Chief. He was the first officer on Life PD, too.
That's right. Life PD. Thanks for the work.
Thank you.
No,
sit. Congratulations. Good go, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Nice to see you. Congratulations. Long time. Good to see you.
Are you good?
Okay. We're back in business, so Finance Committee.
Oh, sorry, I was busy reading all the things on my desk here. Guys, can you do another committee while I find my notes? Sorry.
Okay, that's it.
Oh, well. Sorry, guys, there's too much going on here today.
Other council reports. Anybody have other council reports?
I've got other council thoughts that I'll throw out there this evening. My comments are related to our January 9th workshop that's coming up that's related to Trailhead. And this isn't a report, it's more or less a request, and I'd ask if other council members would support this notion to, rather than sit down on January 9th and talk about a specific plan forward with Trailhead, rather to maybe spend a very short while with the agenda on Trailhead and spend the majority of our time together that night talking about a long-term strategic plan for the city and how that relates to Trailhead and our decision-making going forward. So I guess it's more or less a request if we get a little bit of a consensus from the council to use that time to target long-term strategic planning for the city, as maybe just venture to say 75 to 85% of the agenda, maybe 15 to 25% on a couple of specifics around Trailhead. And I'd just ask if any of the council members would agree with spending our time that way, or.
I think it's a great idea.
Guys,
What?
I'll be out of town, so no comment from me.
Hugh,
I would like to say I would certainly support that.
likewise.
Okay, Finance Committee, you back?
I got it, yes, sorry about that. A lot of talk today during our meeting about mayor's budget questions, which we'll go into more depth a little bit later in the meeting. Quick update on the telephone utility tax issue that we've been having with Verizon paying utility tax. They were issued as an administrative subpoena with a deadline at the end of the month with regards to auditing their records. So RJ and Sean continue to pursue that, try to find out why what they've been paying us is down. Cell phones, we had discussed the possibility of council getting separate cell phones at the last meeting. Talked a little bit more about that during the finance committee with regards to clarifying the purpose and cost. So RJ has presented some options to us. It looks like the cheapest option came down to, I think it was like $15 a month with the touchscreen phone. It's a very inexpensive one, but it would be a good way for us to keep our council and personal business separate with regards to text and phone calls. We did have a citizen bring an idea to us with regards to dual SIM cards, but right now we kind of foresee possible technical challenges with that. For instance, I carry an iPhone 5. Who knows if that would support that platform? So it sounds like, we'll be taking a look at about a $15 a month option, and I know RJ will give us more information on that as time goes by. Videotaping the council meetings. There was a visit up to Deer Park since our last meeting. Working on getting some bids. We're looking at approximately $10,000 to upgrade the system here with regards to speakers, mics, ADA compliance for auditory purposes and videotaping. We will be taking a look at the last of the 2017 budget amendments tonight with regards to snow and ice. We talked about the MVQs and proposed changes, which we will be going through tonight, and we reviewed vouchers.
Okay, city boards and commissions. So library board, what's our library?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Mindy Howe, reporting for the library board. I'll let you know a number of points. First is that the board has reviewed and approved the 2018 budget, and we support the budget as it moves to you for we're actively engaged with the city in recruiting a new library director to replace the retiring Pamela Logan, who will be leaving in October. I think you know that. And the board will ultimately make a recommendation to the mayor for the best candidate. We're starting the process early. This is a multifaceted process. We aren't actually starting recruiting yet, but we're starting our planning so that we are well ahead of the game and able to, contact places to get the best applicants, and then take a good time to review those applicants and bring them forward, the best ones forward. Let's see. We want to get your input, council members, if you want to give it, about the future of the library. So board members will be reaching out to you in early January and trying to set up times to meet with you. One of the times we'll be looking at is before the council meeting on the 16th. But we'll obviously have to give some options. So think about that, please. When the new director is in place, we will advocate for and contribute to a library strategic plan. This is especially critical. I think you know, with the growth of the city, there's additional demand on library services and resources. The Friends of the Library, I think you're aware of that group. They're such a good group. They reported a successful November book sale, and they have a great new slate of officers, which were sworn in today by our colleague, Carol Johns. The group is moving forward with a fundraising campaign, which is based on targeted letters to individuals and businesses, and I think groups, but at least, a very well thought out mail campaign. And this, let's see, it's going to start in the new year, so they haven't actually begun delivering these requests yet. A new technical associate was hired by the library and has begun work. His name is James Trottier. We met him. Seems like a nice guy. I'm sure he's extremely well qualified. Events for children, adults, and families continue to be really, they're super successful. There were 750 participants in November alone. The Santa's visit on the 9th, just recently, as you know, drew 125 or so children and the adults that accompanied them. Children were given crafts to work on while they waited to speak to Santa and had their photo taken, so it was smooth and nicely. And this happened in the meeting room there, it was decorated. And we've been observing that room. Pamela, thank you for some data. There were 18 non-library meetings in November. So of course it's being used by library-sponsored meetings, but that's kind of quiet when you have that 18 meetings. It's quite typical for this room, in addition to all the library-managed meetings and events that are held there. So, in addition. And then there are a few other, given the limited physical storage on current library space, the director took 5,000 books out of circulation in recent months. Most, if not all, were donated to the Friends for the sale. The library now rents bestsellers so that the inventory can be systematically turned over. Patrons checked out or otherwise accessed 11,600 plus books, materials, and data in November alone. As of November 8th, 64% of library cards were held by residents and 36% by non-residents. My understanding is Pamela is giving the third quarter report in writing. I encourage you to take a look at it for more info. And the last point I want to share is a new policy. I think I mentioned before that the library board, we take policy and procedures on as one of our main functions. And a new policy was crafted and approved to allow a designated time or times during the year when patrons can pay fines with food instead of with cash. And these donations will go to organizations helping the needy of our community. Unless there are questions, that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mindy. Planning Commission? From the Planning Commission? Sewer Commission, where's our Liberty Sewer and Water? They're at their big Christmas party tonight, I think. They're giving away the plan. Okay, so Kate.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. We're going to start with a snow update. It snowed on Friday, and Jen Camp was on top of everything, and we'd love to share some facts and figures with how the operation went.
Hello, Mayor. Yes, it snowed. It snowed quite a bit. We broke our crews in and our equipment in. Everything that we had anticipated and rehearsed and recited and met and planned for, crews did a pretty good job. We did have a few little things that we're going to tweak and fine tune, obviously, as we have more events. But all in all, I think it went well. We really focused on not only the guys in the field responding quickly, but this year we were responding to questions, concerns as quickly as possible within the city's Facebook page. Received a couple of messages Saturday morning, and so the priority was to respond and get information out to people. Also, the Notify Me worked really well. It continues to grow. I think we're almost at 200 Notify Me signups, so that's growing and growing and growing. And then it was really wonderful on Facebook because Brian Kuda would forward all of our Notify Me alerts on Facebook, so they would also go out on Facebook. We don't really have the capacity, I think, to put them on Facebook at this time, so it was nice that somebody else was able to share that. So, but yeah, Notify Me, we tried to keep up to date as things happened through the city. And then we had a gap in the middle of the evenings where I basically stopped at 8 p.m. and then started again at 6 a.m. so we didn't blow people's phones up in the middle of the night. We wanted to be respectful of the time. Are there any questions?
Not a question as much as a comment. Kudos to you and your entire staff. I was extremely impressed at how quickly the response was, and to see that the residents were plowed within 24 hours of that first snowfall. I think that's probably one of the best responses we've had in years.
Thank you. I will pass that on.
Very, very impressive for our first snowfall.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just have one comment.
Yes.
Regarding the Facebook postings that's taking place, is our Facebook posting, or our Notify Me, are they marked anyway as to be an official response from the city? So as not to lose any translation, addition by anybody else as it gets posted to Facebook. So my question is, are they identified as an official city post?
Yes, there.
It looked like that.
Yeah, so what Brian Kuda was sharing on the other pages, the other community pages, was and I have to figure out how he got those, because I'm not 100% sure, because we could ideally share those on our page, but they were the official posting, I think that comes through the email. So when you sign up for Notify Me, you can either choose to be notified by email or by text message, or both. And I think he was taking the email that he was receiving and then sharing it out onto the community pages. So that would have been an official city posting.
And the city logo was on,
Yeah, oh,
on
correct.
all of them too.
Yeah, word for word.
Right.
Yeah, and nothing was added to it, it was strictly the formal Notify Me, and then that was it, he sent it off, so.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I want to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Brickner said, because this was our first endeavor doing it ourselves. We learned a lot, but also our crew just really stepped up. Everything from operating the equipment to the de-icer, and I think I have a picture of a piece of equipment right here. So this showed up 11:30 Friday morning. That's our new truck. We're paying for it today. It's in your vouchers. And so what you see on there is a plow on the front, and then the de-ice in the back, and then in the off season it'll be a dump truck. So they basically had no time to even break it in. They just took that and started their snow removal operation about 2 o'clock. So they stepped up, operated all the equipment that we rented. And then Poe Contractor came in and kind of relieved them as the hours went on. But I just have to echo what Councilmember Brickner said, because they just did an outstanding job.
And it was neat to see Kitty and I were meeting to discuss this meeting, and we saw that truck come out, the grader come out, all in one shot. It was a very direct effort on the staff's part. It was pretty incredible to see.
Okay, so moving along. So committee structure discussion. This is something that's come up. We discussed it with some of the directors here and other city staff. Councilmember Brickner and I discussed, the mayor and I discussed, and we've been thinking about what's a better way to keep all the council informed. And so this is just a subject that I'm presenting today. Want to get your feedback. But what I'm noticing is with the committee structure, the council members that are on that committee get a lot of information, and sometimes the other council members that are not on that committee you don't get the depth of that information. And so what we want to present to you is an idea that rather than to have council committees have a more structured workshop sessions. They can be on the off Tuesdays, they could be before a regular scheduled council meeting, where we could put together agendas. They would be no business conducted, just basically in-depth conversations and research and questions about things that are now happening in the committee. We can do, whatever the frequency that the council wants, So the goal is that every council member has access to the same information and the same opportunity to get their questions asked and answered. So this is just kind of an idea that we came up with. Councilmember Brickner, I didn't know if you wanted to share any of your thoughts, but we think it might be better for the whole council to be informed on whether it's finance or public safety or community development, have a better base of all the information that's discussed at the community level.
Did you want to add on to that?
Do you mind?
Go for it.
The idea has been appreciated, and we've given some thought to it, or I've given some thought to it. And what I would like the council as a whole to consider would be to modify the time that we start our regular council meetings. For the sake of discussion, I'm suggesting 5:30. From 5:30 to 7, we have all the briefings by the various committees. That would allow everyone that can make that meeting to come away fully advised of what's taking place. So if they miss it, you missed it because it was on you, not because the information wasn't available. So I would like, if possible, for you to think about that. Think about how it works with your schedules. But I believe that the staff would already be available. We meet, we're moving, okay? And we transition right from the committee meetings, or the start of the committee hearings, right into our regular session. And I think what will happen is that as time goes by, we may see a little less information being provided at each meeting, because you'd have to put a time limit of 45 minutes per committee to give us the information. So we would ask them to focus and target specific areas that upcoming that we need to know about, so we're on the same page, then move from week to week to week with it. So if you would get back with the Mayor Pro Tem, let him know what you think. The Mayor Pro Tem will be working with Katie to see what we can put together if that's your desire. Thank you.
And if I may, I think this is a fabulous idea. It really allows for complete and utter transparency amongst the council about the different committees and what's being discussed, so there's no question of, I didn't know about that, or I didn't hear about that. And secondarily, for the people that can't make that meeting, we can have Katie email that individual that couldn't make that time for work or whatever reasons. But I think it'll allow for a lot better discussion when we get to the city council portion on those topics, and we've gotten all the information necessary.
Are you suggesting that this take place at the first council meeting of each month, or
The first
and third?
Yes.
Both. Okay, so you're saying both.
Yes. And we can look at it and have discussions, and you can let me know your thoughts on it, but we could, knowing that the community development meets once a month, maybe they take up a little more time on the second meeting of the month, and the planning and finance take up a little more time on that first meeting. I
So
mean, there's obvious.
They'd alternate between the police
Obviously,
department.
we can mess with it a little bit, but that transparency amongst all of us will be great to have. So, let me know.
I appreciate it, thank you. So the next item is related to Trailhead, and as everyone recalls, last Tuesday, a week ago, we had a workshop on Trailhead. And I just wanted to follow up on kind of the outcome and make sure that we have everything right. And I didn't know how this conversation was going to go on the workshop schedule, so I put down January 9th. You guys can move it. I wouldn't want to move it sooner because we have to do a lot of research and the like, but if you want to move it to the next council meeting, so it'd be just before the January 16th council meeting, that's fine as well. So we met with staff yesterday about 11 o'clock, and we went through kind of the paper and the areas that we circled. And I'm going to pull out a couple of ideas that came out of the workshop. If I have it wrong, please let me know. The one kind of decision that I think the whole council was on board with was retaining ownership of the facility, of the property. The other thing was, I thought that the consensus of the council was to move forward with the irrigation in 2018. If I don't have that correct, let me know, but that was kind of what I took away with. Doesn't mean that you're going to award a contract, it just means that it's in the budget and that we'll get some bids and we'll start working on that, and then Andrew's going to put together information and we'll come back to you in a workshop when we talk about the design elements and all the costs before we go out to bid, those kinds of things. And then the third piece was kind of, it covered a strategic plan, a finance plan, and a master plan. And as Councilmember Severs mentioned, the next workshop, you guys, what I heard was maybe talk about that in terms of the whole city rather than just Trailhead. And that 75% of this workshop would be dedicated to more of the strategic plan for the whole city, not just Trailhead. So does that?
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to that a little bit, I agree with Hugh's assessment, and I think a lot of us have thought about this in relation to really creating that strategic plan and that master plan. for Trailhead. Knowing that, and knowing that that's going to be vital of importance for all of us, I still think that we need to look at putting into the budget, not that we're going to do it, but putting into the budget the irrigation system. Because once we discuss that master plan and of Trailhead and our strategic plan, if we decide that we definitely want to move forward with that irrigation, it's not in the budget, then we have to do an amendment, and that becomes challenging for a lot of people. So the fact that it's in the budget doesn't mean we're going to necessarily do it, but it's there for when we are done with our master plan, our strategic plan, we can move forward if necessary.
Okay. So then, taking this a step further, is the January 9th at 5:30, do we want to stay with that, or do we want to move it to January 16th at 5:30?
I would say January 9th.
January
That's
9th?
good.
January 9th.
Yes.
Okay, so Councilmember Kaminskas can't be here, but,
No, I'd offer to call in, but I'm going to be tied up.
okay. So we'll say with January 9th, 5:30, and it will be similar, very conversational and those things. Then the last element I was going to mention is Councilmember Severs had brought to my attention, there's potentially someone that could help facilitate that discussion. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Let's circle back on that.
Okay.
And my reasoning behind is that it's a resource that we may want to bring in at a later point. but
Okay.
As per a couple conversations I've had, it may be a little premature for that.
Okay. So with that, we'll kind of gear up the workshop to talk about the master plan of the whole city, and then if you want things on the driving range, what Chris was going to do was look at what, if any, design changes to the driving range and what those would do on the operational side and on the cost side. So that's what he's doing. He's calling around and getting information on, if we make the driving range shorter, if the orientation of the T-blocks are different, what can we do to get the cost of the netting down? And then what would be the implications of those changes on his revenues?
If I may, because she won't be able to make that meeting, if we can have the recording available for her and maybe a Cliff Notes version as well.
Okay.
Just so she can get up to speed on what we discussed, that would be good.
Okay. Very good. And then, so I think that wraps it up for Trailhead. So we'll figure on January 9th at 5:30.
Katie, real quick on Trailhead, I'm saying this in concern for Chris's time, the driving range designs and those pieces. And again, I can only speak as one of seven, but my concerns with the way Trailhead and the building and the driving range fit in the overall long-term strategic plan of the city is less about driving range configuration and more about the long-term strategic plan of the city, and saying this is a driving range plus a building project. And my concern, and I'll leave this on you, is wasting Chris's time at this. It may be a little bit earlier for that, because even if Chris came and said we can do it for half the amount, at least my opinion would be great. We're still not going to move forward with it until we understand what's going to go on with the building.
So I really appreciate that, because, maybe it is premature, the timing's not right. Maybe what we could have is RJ go over the cost of how much the golf course operation is costing us, the business plan of what is currently money in and money out of the current operation. We could do that on January 9th, and then talk about the citywide master planning, strategic planning discussion.
That sounds more valuable to me, but I mean, again, what does everybody else think?
I would agree with that we don't want to lose Chris's time until we talk about that master plan and strategic plan. We're kind of putting one in front of the other, and the master plan, strategic plan are going to be vital for any discussion on design or cost.
Okay, so kind of there's two parts to the workshop then. One will be the business plan of Trailhead, money in, money out, current, and then the next piece will be related to citywide strategic planning.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe one more piece on the driving range would just be, I don't know if this is Chris or it may be more Katie, is just to make sure that we're, whatever's happening with the driving range right now is going to be acceptable to the insurance company, temporarily speaking, from a liability standpoint.
I did talk to Clear Risk this week, and they're pleased with the fact that we are trying to address the problem and working towards it. So the fact that we're talking about it, making decisions and meetings of what we're going to do with that, they're saying you are on the right track. So,
I would certainly like to see the possibility that Chris has a company that he's already dealt with, has given us this report to come up with $1.5 to $1.7 million on that. If he already has a relationship with that, possibly the time he would put into it would be minimal at this point, and that if he does start some sort of conversation with them, it doesn't mean it has to come to fruition on the end, but it might be advantageous that he would start his conversation now versus waiting until we get further down the road and then suddenly say, gee, Chris, can you start this process again? Let's say it takes him 30 days, and now we've just postponed the possibility of moving ahead with our decisions. So I would support the idea of maybe waiting, but if we can at least check with him to see the company's already dealt with, they may be in the position with very little work to be given to give some sort of a figure, just for consideration.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to move on to item number 4. So I wasn't going to go into this in depth, but it's actually a great subject for a future workshop. So I-90 regional projects, and when I say I-90 regional projects for Liberty Lake, it's basically from Barker to Harvard, and Henry is in there. This past week, I've had the opportunity to work with the mayor and Senator Patton, and also DOT and the Valley and the school district, as well as our police and fire department. Police department and the fire district, and get some beginning conversation about advancing these projects sooner than later. And basically there's a lot of, and Mayor, do you want to weigh in on this? I know that there's a lot of discussion that's going to happen in Olympia, and it's critical, but I think in the long run, this is some good news for Liberty Lake.
Yeah, we've had a good conversation with DOT over the last few months in regards to Henry, Harvard, and Barker, and also a little bit inclusive with the Valley and with legislative, 60-day session coming up. I think we're all on board. Henry Road had funding had been set aside in the transportation bill back in 2 or 3 years ago for $26.5 million, but the funding was to take place in 2029, which is about 12 years from now. Seems like a long ways, but all of a sudden time goes by very quickly. But the reality is that the goal with DOT, the city, is to try to move the funding forward within the next 3 to 5 year cycle. That DOT will help lead the way. We are engaged a little bit in preliminary discussions in regards to how Henry might hook up to I-90 in the timeline there. But I think overall, everybody is very supportive of trying to be proactive in transportation planning and construction so we can take care of our growth as we grow out. So DOT has really, Mike Scribner has stepped up to the plate to lead that from a statewide DOT perspective with the legislature, and then we've got Senator Patton along with Senator Billy downtown will help hopefully facilitate the movement of that money in a kind of an administrative way. We talked about how that might move. So, but that's our goal anyway.
I know that the discussions are pretty new in regards to this topic and what their involvement would be. Specific to Harvard Road widening, are they looking at, so I can get a better understanding, are we discussing them funding the entire thing? Half of it? A fourth of it?
We're looking at them funding the entire thing.
and we feel pretty confident.
They are. So this is what's notable about what happened last week is everybody, so when I say everybody, DOT, the City of Liberty Lake, and the legislature are all on the same page. That wasn't the case before. But you're correct, when the mayor was talking about advancing these monies from the out years to the near years, DOT would take on these projects as agency projects with the full support of the agency on their funds. So there's a lot of legislative, I'll say, successes that they're going to need to make that happen. So it's not over the goal line yet. But the fact that that DOT is accepting these projects as agency projects is a huge win for Liberty Lake. So if they take on the Harvard Road widening, we're looking at 2020, which was our schedule, but it wouldn't require us to match and seek funding. It would be their project, and they would use state money.
A couple of things. One, Katie, thank you and thank the mayor for getting involved in this discussion. What I would like to know, though, if it's available, is by the time we start our planning on January 9th, is what is going to be required for acquisition of land for that project. Will Liberty Lake be involved as a city for attaching the land, purchasing the land, or would that be included if there was any by the DOT? And are there any efforts that we need to lay groundwork for 18 to facilitate the movement that you've already started? So we'd appreciate hearing about that as well, sir.
Just a little brief comment on that. Around Henry Road, there are basically four parties. The Corporate Park, Centennial Properties, DNR, the city, and there was another.
DNR.
Yes, there were three, but in the city of Liberty Lake. So there was four signers, basically on the right-of-way, to provide the right-of-way for that area. The only caveat is somewhat with DNR, the Department of Natural Resources. They can't just deed over their land, so we're going to have to go through some kind of. Is it probably going to be more on Centennial property, or is it going to be more on DNR property? But they do get benefit, and so with that said, then in the discussion here, just I guess it was Friday, I think a little bit post-discussion, we talked about ensuring that we maintain the right-of-way along I-90 for Cataldo. You know where Cataldo, you see this kind of the frontage road, so maintain a frontage road right-of-way. And then we talked a little bit about the lift back, when we first went down this path. Senator King, who was the chair of the Transportation Committee at the time, was looking at the lift being a partial match. And that would probably come in with the hookups of the overpass to the freeway. That's still to be kind of determined. So we are, to your question, ensuring that we're maintaining and acquiring and solidifying right away, so we don't have to go back and buy that and have somebody build something there and have to basically condemn it, so you could purchase it. So we are at least ahead of that curve, and most of the major property owners are, all the major property owners.
Thank you, sir.
In regards to Harvard Road, knowing that we are potentially with this new discussion looking to 2020, and that was kind of our timeline, with the existing condition of the street or the bridge itself, I'm talking about the surface. The deck of it. Do we need to resurface that in the meantime? Or can we hold out till 2020?
we should be able to hold out until 2020. There's no immediate emergency issues that need to be dealt with. And we'll work closely with the DOT maintenance staff. If they see anything that emerges, we'll deal with it.
Okay, so I'll move on,
I have a
but,
question.
so this is, one more question.
Yeah, I have a question. Help me understand on Harvard Road, how just a short time ago, it didn't look good that it was going to happen.
I'm sorry?
Tell me, a short time ago, it seems like Harvard Road looked like it was postponed for several years down the road, and we were looking at coming up with at least half the money ourselves. Help me understand again how so quickly, it seems to me that the state has turned around. Am I hearing this incorrectly? The state has turned around and there's a possibility they'll fund the whole thing?
So Harvard Road is a project that widening came out of our traffic study.
Right.
And at the time, DOT, and this was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, committed $800,000 towards the Harvard Road widening.
Correct.
We were then going to, as a city, take that widening project on, and we were going to then compete for outside funding from other agencies to build it at the $4.5 million. And we were looking at 2020. And that's, that's optimistic, but still, if all the funding comes together, that was going to be done. By taking the $26.5 million that are in 2029 and moving them forward, and having the agency, which is DOT, taking on this project, now it can be their project and they could use the future funding and advance it forward and fully fund that project.
Wasn't it $26.5 million for Henry Road?
So, right, so basically, that's why we need the workshop. But just real simply, we've taken three projects, actually 4 because it's the westbound on-ramp, but in very simple terms, we've taken the Henry Road interchange that was funded in 2029. We've asked that be advanced to now, which is going to be very challenging because, very challenging. And then out of that funding, we get 4 projects. The 4 projects are Harvard Road widening, the westbound on-ramp extension, the Henry Road overpass, and then the Barker Road, which is outside Liberty Lake, but it's the north side of Barker Road at Cataldo, the roundabout. So that is why DOT is like 100% for this, because they have no money for Barker right now. And they already have dollars in Harvard, and they were not going to support the Henry Road interchange. They will support the Henry Road overpass.
Overpass, okay.
And so that, I hope that makes sense. But that's what's happened, is they as an agency have said, boy, we are behind this. You have the support of the agency on these projects. So now they're their projects.
I realize that everybody has their hand out, every city does, wanting what's best for them. We're unique that we at least have some funds. So I'm going to be as confident as I can that what I'm hearing from the state is more than likely going to happen. I'm apprehensive to bank everything on the state and to think that we don't need to be attentive and know what our responsibility is.
This is not a done deal, and it's going to be major legislative support. I mean, there's a lot of competition over there, and our senators and legislators are going to need a lot of support from the Spokane Valley, from DOT, and from us, strongly advocating for this.
That's my point. I want us all to be aware that this is not a done deal.
Correct.
But we will be good stewards and work towards everything we can to get this accomplished. But not put aside that this is not going to be our responsibility to get this done.
I guess just, I don't interrupt you, but a couple things. Number one is the $26.5 million this has been, I guess, almost full loop. This started out as a project led by DOT to widen I-90 out to Idaho state line. So this is kind of where the 10 years ago was at. And so we've kind of corralled it a little bit in the best interest of all this, kind of what they want to do and what we need to do, etc. The second thing is that we anticipate we will know within 90 days to 6 months the outcome of our efforts. And we're hopeful that they'll be successful.
Right.
But So it's not like, hey, we're gonna delay this 2 years and then find out that we aren't successful. We'll know hopefully within 6 months.
Excellent, thank you.
That's a good point.
Okay, moving on to, oh, I'm sorry.
Just,
one
hey,
more.
so Mayor Peterson, is the action of this in the committee, you think, in the Senate or in the House Committee on Transportation?
It's in both. And so, I mean, it's, and kind of the, you know, what's happened over there is that the Senate switched horses in midstream. So now the Republicans now in the minority and in the Senate, state Senate, and the Democrats are now in the majority of it by one vote. And the same exists kind of in the House, that the Democrats are one vote majority or 2 votes in the House. So everybody wants to work together. So I think, and that kind of goes to what Katie's point was, and you know, our work with DOT is, when you have a lead agency or an agency like DOT coming on board and saying, hey, you know, we really want to get some of these projects started and get the money out there, you know, to develop a project, get some activity or money into the communities, you know, the contractors, etc. There's a great deal of effort moving in that direction. The nice thing is that, you know, it takes action by both houses, but we've had very good relationships with the people on both sides of the aisle in the transportation committees in the Senate, as well as in the House of Representatives, and same with the leadership. So we anticipate, Senator Patton, and I know it's going to be a stretch, but we anticipate that this has a pretty good chance of success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving to the next item, just a quick comment. City Hall's closed Christmas and the first of the year. And then we did have a staff potluck last week, and I just have to publicly acknowledge Odin, who worked in our kitchen after that potluck. Thank you. My roaster has never been, it looks brand new. It didn't look like good when I brought it, so thank you so much. And then finally, we do have a presentation that's not on the agenda from Visit Spokane, so I'm going to introduce Cheryl, and Cheryl can come up and talk about Visit Spokane. And as she makes her presentation, this is connected to your action item 10B1.
I'm sorry, what was that, 10B1?
10B1.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is regarding the tourism promotion area. We help manage those dollars on your behalf. And when the TPA was created as a countywide tourism program, Liberty Lake was not included, and Liberty Lake decided that they wanted to participate, and so you created your own. And so we work with that within the TPA and the regional framework, but we also make sure that we're doing things that are specific to conversations that we've had with the mayor and city staff. So just walk through with you the priorities for this year and give you a couple of examples of some things that we've done in 17 that relate to some of the things we'll be doing in 18, and see if you have any questions as we go. So our organizational goals for 2018, and we've adopted a new strategic plan, is to really make sure that we've got an aggressive sales and marketing program, a stronger brand identity for the region, improved community support and engagement, and then a strategic product development approach to some things that we may need in order to attract even greater visitation. So just going through some of these. The sales and marketing, we do a lot of digital campaigns, and we follow people around Facebook and around the web. So when they come to our website, we know what they're looking for, and we go serve out more of that so that they find us. We have a microsite for the city of Spokane, or excuse me, for the city of Liberty Lake. And what we do on that site is really make sure that we're sorting and making it really easy for them to find the things that are specific to your city. Our public relations effort is really targeted at travel, lifestyle, culinary, leisure writers and bloggers, and we're working more on influencers, and so we have a lot of effort related to that.
we promote all of the different events that are held here in the city. And we also make sure that your position as a hub, so where are you close to, and making sure that we're connecting those dots. But event promotion is a lot of that, and a lot of your lodging tax applicants, as well as the activities from the Friends of Pavilion Park are event driven, and that's one of the most popular pages on our website. And so making sure that we're sorting those and making them easy to find by the municipality of Liberty Lake is really important as well. Parks and Recreation, we work on, again, promoting all those activities, and I know you're planning to have a new park board kind of structure, and we'd love to work really closely with that and be a resource to that group. And we produce videos that we then place and put out there from time to time so that they stay fresh and make sure that people are seeing the things. So when we promote the region, we've got these pieces that are specifically about Liberty Lake, so that becomes the specific fulfillment, so to speak, on, okay, now I'm interested in coming to the region, what can I learn about Liberty Lake, so we can help make those decisions to stay here. Golf is always an important part that we work on. We have a partnership with the county park related to golf, the city of Spokane, as we promote the whole region, adding those dollars together so it's very cost effective. And then food and wine is such an important part of how people decide where to travel, and so we spend a lot of time really promoting that. And Liberty Lake has really blossomed in the food and wine area with more options that are distinctive that people will seek out, and it helps. We've got some cool stuff we're going to do to help connect that, and I'll show that in just a second. We go after group travelers, not just leisure individual travelers, but also group. And we support motor coach tours, and we work with the hotels to understand what motor coach tours are already coming here. And then we help support that to make sure they've got itineraries, so maybe we can add some days. But we also go after new opportunities. And so we actually have a person that's dedicated to tour and travel trade opportunities. And so that's something that we'll continue to work on. Meetings and conventions, you don't have meeting facilities out here, but when we have those big events that we do bring to the region, they do sometimes use rooms all the way out here. And we've got a couple that are annual events that really go all the way to Post Falls, and we fill lots and lots of room nights. They have typically met in the arena. They're so big, they can't even fit in the convention center. So we do a lot of those kinds of activities, and we make sure that they get included in the Liberty Lake Hotel options. Event participants, those are the people who are coming maybe to watch an activity but not necessarily be a competitor, and we help them fill out what to do in their free time. And then sports spectators. We don't attract tournaments, but we work very closely with the Sports Commission to make sure that the spectators and the people who are here can find things to do. So some of the things that we do from a leisure standpoint is we coordinate familiarization tours. So we bring people here and tour them around so they see the different options. We participate in tour operator based trade shows. So right now our salesperson is at the National Tour Association, and she's having timed appointments with different tour operators talking about where they can stay and what are they doing and building itineraries, but also making sure that we have those options for accommodations. We engage with our customers through a consumer database. When we have people inquiring about the Spokane region, we put that in the database. We have a kiosk at the airport and at the mall, and we put those in, and we create opportunities through the website to capture names and get them to sign up. And so it's really an important part of what we do so that people can engage with us and we can serve up more of the things that they want and customize it to what their interests are. And then we work really diligently to connect the dots. And a couple of examples, and this is something that came up in our meeting this year with the mayor and staff, but also at the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, is the hub and some of the signage and maps. You know, you have to literally leave Liberty Lake after you leave the hub to come back to Liberty Lake to come in for dining and accommodations. And so one of the things that we did after we met with the mayor and staff is we met with the hub, and we're going to actually make some signs that say welcome to the city of Liberty Lake that will hang in the hub. So one, you're claiming it as being in Liberty Lake. And then we'll have a map that will show them how to get from the hub into Liberty Lake to restaurants and stuff. And so we're going to have a detailed map. Then we're going to make flat maps that will be pull off, like a tear off map, and give them to the hotels that will help connect as well. And so that map situation we think will really help people know how to get back in, so they won't just head to what something passed on the way out to the hub, which would be the mall, off of Sullivan. So we're really gonna make that concerted effort in working with the hub, and we figured out what we're gonna do with Bill Chandler just a couple weeks ago. And then RVs is something that, they don't collect your TPA dollars, but they are an important part of your other tax revenues that visitors spend. And so we wanna really make sure that we're doing more of a concerted effort with the RVs for the people who are coming here, because you've got an RV park that you're working on, but also for those that are coming and leasing or buying, and making sure that they're connecting the opportunities of what to do here in Liberty Lake. International travel is actually growing. It's one of the fastest growing parts of tourism to Washington State. In double digits, the increases of people coming through the Port of Seattle. Asian travelers in particular are coming through Washington on their way to Yellowstone. Yellowstone is on the top 10 list of the Chinese travelers. And so we are working to do more tours with that group and have them stay longer, spend more time here on their way, not just stop for a coffee break kind of thing, get off the bus. So we're really working on that. And we're working closely with the Port of Seattle, with Visit Seattle, and other partners in Washington, and connecting those opportunities. The influencers, it used to be that you only went to influencers that might be media, news, lifestyle, bloggers became a thing, and now it's influencers. So people who have big following on, people do what they do. They're copying and following what those people do. And so we're really gonna have an influencers campaign this year to really build that awareness. And it's very experiential, so it's more testimonial, it's real. And so we're working on that, and that's gonna be a new addition this year. And then, I already mentioned the tour groups, and then really pursuing those sister city partnerships and making sure that we're connecting with them to make sure that when there's opportunities to bring people in, that we're part of that mix. So here's some examples of our social media engagement examples. So we do a lot of things that have information, and then we bring them specifically to what Liberty Lake has to offer. This is our interactive map on the website. So when you hover here, it actually pops up. This is what pops up. So on our homepage of our website, we put this regional map in, and so all you have to do is hover, and then Liberty Lake's microsite pops up right there on the homepage. You don't have to search for it. And it's a new website this year. One of the things that we're really excited about is that most of the times when you have a new website, you actually have a dip in traffic, and then it starts to climb once Google Analytics all catch up with it. Our website has continually grown even after we have a new website. So we're sort of breaking that trend. But we think part of the interactivity on the homepage is one of the things. And we're also finding that our click-throughs from our website to specific businesses has grown by over 1,000% since the new website. So we're really excited about that. We're going to do a conversion study this year. We did one a few years ago, so we knew how much it influenced people, how strongly and importantly it influenced people for incremental travel dollars. And so we'll have that opportunity to report out on that in the future as well. Then this is an example of a Liberty Lake webpage and some of the other detail when you click through. And then this is the new Liberty Lake. Oh, this is the map, and then this is how Liberty Lake is described. We've got the pullout. And then this is the new Liberty Lake brochure. We're going to use this as a segue. We've got a new brand this year, and we've been working on launching it. But one of the things we really want to point out is that you don't have to give up Liberty Lake to affiliate with the brand. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about the brand after this video. Is there sound?
We have no sound.
This is the new silent movie over there. I'm not sure what happened. It does have sound. We'll make sure that we can get it out to them, right?
We can send them a link.
Yeah, let's do that. And I'll go ahead and scoot by it. Sorry about that. So the Stronger brand, we did a lot of research, and we're really excited about what we did because we didn't, I'm not going to get a negative, we really wanted to make sure that everybody could affiliate with it and not have to sacrifice your own identity. And so we're really excited. It's research-based. I'm not going to go through the whole hour-long presentation, but I will tell you that it's research-based. We tested many, many times. We had over 300 stakeholders within the community, within the region, participate, and this is what we came up with. So basically, the idea is that Spokane is the region, and that we are the capital of the Intermountain Northwest. What our research showed is that every time we compare ourselves to Seattle by saying Inland Northwest, we actually are shooting our foot. And that if we were to stake our claim as being the largest metropolitan area, and visitors consider the metropolitan area to be from West Plains to Liberty Lake, all that in between, that is the largest metropolitan center in the Intermountain Northwest. That by saying between the Cascades and the Rockies, it actually defines us as a bigger place. And we don't have to compare ourselves to being the biggest city between Seattle and Minneapolis, because that doesn't really help us with our cause of trying to attract more attention to who we are. So it goes through this. I'm just going to do this quickly, but basically, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought I was clicking the laser there. Okay, so we're the vibrant metropolitan center. None of our competition is using a metropolitan center to really, from a leisure standpoint, to really position themselves. And as a planned community, Liberty Lake fits that bill, and that new urbanism, even on a smaller scale, because of the intent that you're creating in your downtown and in your sense of place. So it fits everything, it fits all that you're doing. That we're serving as the cultural, economic, educational, and social hub of the Intermountain Northwest. That our community has a lot of get-it-done dreamers who've co-created the urban hub, distinguished by inventive and ambitious events, inspired restaurateurs, microbreweries, and wineries. And then it touches on education, the education. We've got the 5 universities here in the region. The hassle-free antidote to the friction of modern living. That is Liberty Lake. Our accessible city experience, punctuated by an urban river gorge, couples civility, livability, and simplicity for the highest possible rate of rewarding life. So this is intended to be able to work for leisure and work and educators and all the different types of people that we're trying to attract here to our region. And the brand values are about who we are as a community, as a region. And then we've got our personality, that we're bold and social and fit and spirited. And then we've got different themes. And so what we're doing right now, it's pretty cool. We're building out a storyteller platform. So we've developed stories, and we're continuing to work on this. But Placemakers is a theme. So it's like, who are those people that are co-creating Liberty Lake? Who are those people that are the get-it-done dreamers? And how can we tell that story so that people are intrigued and want to find more? The time economy and the ability to get around here is so important. And the long daylight that we have in the summer is really something to sell and to really promote, that you can do so much more here in a day and connect with the people you're traveling with. And then the tastemakers, and this is where there's so much more going on here than there even just were a few years ago about the restaurants and you've got the Liberty Lake Winery, and you've got so much more going on here. And so we'll be taking different aspects of what we can find in Liberty Lake and building those stories and getting them out there. And then the new urbanism is really about making sure that we've got what the kind of community we want. We're not being defined by our congestion or our metropolitan area. We're defining what we want and making it happen. And so we're really working to do that. And then graphically, you'll see through the presentation, there's all these kinds of things. It allows us to connect it without giving up Liberty Lake. We've got the nesting hearts, and if you saw at the very front page, the nesting hearts, on the very front page of the presentation was the nesting hearts Liberty Lake. Because we could do that, and you never have to see Spokane on any of the stuff that we're doing, but it all connects. So it's a pretty cool way to do that. The increasing the community awareness and support and engagement is really, we've got a new program that we'll be launching in 2018. It's a certified tourism hospitality program. We had one a few years ago. It didn't have some of the flexibility that we needed. And so this one allows us to have much more flexibility, and it'll be online as well as in-person training. And then we get people on a bus and drive them around so that they see what they're connecting to. And that's a frontline employee training that we'll be launching in 2018. We're really excited about that. We have brand ambassadors who are helping make sure that we're cultivating that. Our business development team is one of the ones that's working on that. And Jason Feist, who's here at one of your hotels, has agreed to serve on that. So that's a really good connection for all of that work. And then we're moving into a new regional visitor information center in the spring. We're going to be in Riverfront Park, and we'll have actually a fixed location again. And we believe that we're going to have dedicated parking in the park, that little parking lot, and we're going to be what was the Fountain Cafe by the Rotary Fountain. So we think that that'll be good from a foot traffic. We still would love to find something along the interstate so we can accommodate RVs and get more people off the interstate than just finding us. But the fixed location we think will be a really good one to make sure that we've got that regional opportunity with interactive displays, and really be able to show the videos and all that sort of thing in there. And then I put your new Parks Board on there because we think that that'll be a great way for us to tie together as well. And then our strategic product development as it relates to Liberty Lake and the region, but cross promotion equals expansion. One of the things that we're working with, and from our meeting with the mayor and the staff, is you've got the cycling, and there's 3 different cycling events, and we're going to help facilitate getting them working together, and we're going to promote them as a trifecta. The motor coach strategy that I already talked about, the drone events, the hub's got some, the mayor's got some ideas, and we're going to be looking for some groups that we might be able to attract here to do drone events. And then as the regional parks continue to make their plans, and we'll be working to connect them to dining and accommodations. And then the Spokane Sports Commission has got some things that they need some support with, and we'll be helping them with that on behalf of Liberty Lake as well. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks for coming.
Great presentation. That's a great job to be able to work with Visit Spokane. We have a great professional team down there.
Well, we really appreciate working with Liberty Lake. You guys have got a great team that tells us what we need to hear, and we love that. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're free to visit someplace else. We're at the action items.
I move action item consent agenda 1 and 2 to approve December 5th, 2017 City Council minutes and to approve December 19th, 2017 vouchers in the amount of $1,153,688.17.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Not hearing all, please say aye.
Aye.
There you go.
Mayor, move general business number 1 to approve the Spokane Tourism Promotion Area and local agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Not hearing all, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Mayor, move general business number 2 to confirm Mayor Peterson's reappointment of Planning Commission.
Second.
Mayor, I do have a modification to make, real quick. So on the Planning Commission, we have 3 existing commissioners whose term ends at the end of the year. And so we're asking that you reappoint them. It's Charles Matthews, Jesse Fox, and Richard Seiler. The appointment of Jamie and some of the adjunct, we'd like to bring back those on January 2nd. And in conversation today, what the mayor would like to bring back on January 2nd for the council's consideration is an appointment of Phil Follier to a voting position, Jamie adjunct, and then Tom Sahlberg as an adjunct.
Tonight's motion, though, is just for the 3 that are
Correct.
already on the council.
Right, the others would come back on January 2nd.
And I would like to say, and I'll say it again just because I think it's important that we discuss this, especially for future purposes. In prior situations where Planning Commission was appointed, where there was some open seats available, I've always encouraged, just like City Council seats, that we put it out there that those seats are available. If we don't put it out there, people aren't going to know, and they might be interested in doing it. We might have somebody out there that is more highly qualified, and to not give them the opportunity, I think is doing a disservice to our citizens that might be interested. And I've said it time and time again, whether it's Planning Commission or City Council, the more people we can get involved, the better, whether it's my seat for City Council or somebody for Planning Commission.
I'd like to support what Shane's saying. We talked about this last year when we had a Planning Commission member come up for reappointment. And we talked about wanting to, get ahead of the game when positions were coming up for
at the end of their term to get it out there to see if there was anybody else interested. Not necessarily to unseat anybody, but again, to see what qualified applicants were out there. And, you know, shame on us a little bit, you know, for not looking at this early enough to realize that there were 3 positions coming up for reappointment at the end of this year and not addressing this sooner. I think we need to make this part of our regular discussions. We have a couple more, 1, 2, 3 coming up at the end of 2018. I'd like for us to address this sooner and figure out how we're going to do this. Nobody's seat should be an automatic. And that's not geared at anybody in particular at all. I've been happy with what's been going on, but we need to make sure that people understand that the opportunity is there.
Further discussion? Hearing, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there you go.
Mayor, move general business number 3 to approve contract amendment for GR Dorn and Associates and authorize Mayor Peterson to sign the amendment.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there you go.
Mayor, move general business number 4 to approve 2018 partnership agreement with the Splash and authorize Mayor Peterson to sign the agreement.
Second.
Discussion? Not hearing
I've-
any, pardon?
Excuse me, sir. Would you describe to us what we're keeping, what we're not keeping, Mayor?
Good question. Okay? We will describe that to you.
Thank you, sir.
In 2017, we had two pages in the Splash. One was primarily dedicated to the library that the park shared, and another page was a lookout page. We're not going for 2018. The recommendation is to remove the page that the library had. They don't have a use for it, and they have other needs that they want to advertise. So that's what we're using, is basically a library page.
So, by bringing this forward, the administration is saying that they find this still to be an effective way for the city to communicate, sir?
I believe so, Odin. I think it's part of the mix, not just the thing it was, I think maybe 10 years ago, but part of the mix. We're looking on the social media side to improve that communication. We're looking at our communication with our electronic signage. We're looking at our print communication with the Splash. It still has a viability for our community and our connection to our community. I think it's important too to note that, that as we go forward with this strategic planning we talk about, it's going to take a lot of community engagement and education, and the Splash is a means of communication, in-depth of kind of deep policy and deep issues. Right? So I think it's beneficial to be part of that. I think we've been beneficial in being able to support the council's piece or the parks piece and the mayor's corner has been kind of built around what's in the interest of the community and what they should be coming and attending council meetings with. So I remember I think it was one of the August or July meetings that we had great attendance because we out of one of the mayor's columns. So I think it's beneficial to us.
Thank you, sir.
Steve, Mr. Mayor, I do actually want to speak in support of the Splash Current, specifically the ability to reach the publications. The total readership, I'm going to say, and the distribution of this is, to me, a very impressive value for what's being shown as monthly. I want to harken back to days, and I'll recognize Amanda's efforts in newsletter preparation, the monthly effort for the city itself to prepare that as a burden in comparison. This is, in my opinion, a great value for the ability to communicate with the people of the community. So, thanks.
Further discussion? Not hearing, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Mayor, I move general business number 5 to authorize the mayor to sign the 2018 annual support fee agreement with FILES.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Not hearing, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Mayor, I move general business number 6 to approve the lodging tax advisory board recommendations.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go.
Mayor, I move general business number 7 to confirm Mayor Peterson's appointment to the Parks and Arts Commission.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Who is it?
Is there clarification?
Clarification?
Who are the people?
Who are the people?
Who are the people?
Very good,
One
I'm
of the
trying to
people-
find
one
that
of the
piece of
people
paper and, yeah,
It's on
it's
page
something
31.
handwritten, that's a little more.
Of our agenda, it's
Secure. Thank you. So, thanks for the opportunity to go over this. So position number 1 is Bridget Harris, she represents Orchard. Position 2 is Tom Salberg, he represents Orchard. David Heimbaugh, position number 3, representing Pavilion. Jeanette Knoll, Pavilion Park, position number 4. Laura Frank, position number 5, Rocky Hill. Tom Chamberlain, position number 6, Rocky Hill. At large, Lena Schultz, position number 7. 2 adjunct positions, Robert Scheidmiller and Sam Nelson as adjunct.
Further discussion?
Just that I look forward to the first year of adventure for our Parks and Arts Commission. I look forward to what they're going to contribute in terms of actions and activities for our city. Thanks.
I had a pretty robust outreach to get people to apply.
Yeah.
I think we had 10 applications.
Correct.
7 plus 2 plus, and one position. One person dropped out anyway.
One person dropped out, one person wasn't eligible. One of the adjunct individuals actually lives in Orchard, across, outside city limits, but he's a chiropractor here in the city. So he owns a business here in the city, so he's one of the adjunct positions.
And we were able to get some of the Laura Frank and Dave Heimbaugh, both past presidents of Pavilion Park, friends of Pavilion Park, so they had some experience in the parks, the entertainment, stuff like that.
I think we have a pretty diverse from new residents to residents that have lived here a long time, mothers, retired folks. It's a nice, mix of folks with different perspectives.
Just a quick question with regards to the student representatives shall be appointed by the Parks and Art Commission. What's our recruitment process, or their recruitment process going to be? Are they going to decide that?
They're going to decide that. So we have a whole new bylaws and everything to nail down. Also, just I wanted to mention the ordinance that we passed didn't allow for adjunct, but just because of attendance and people traveling, we want to incorporate adjunct positions into the park board as well. The other thing I do want to mention, because I have just a quick minute, we are the owner of Orchard Park now. Amanda whispered that in my ear and I forgot to mention that earlier. So we do officially own Orchard Park.
Great.
In regards to the Parks and Art Commission, I'd like the city council to think about this, and if you have interest in it, I do think we should have a representative from the city council when they have their meetings to give us some feedback on what's going on, what's being discussed. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll coordinate it with Katie.
That'd be wonderful. We haven't had the first meeting set up yet, but the first part of the year, we are going to do public record and public meeting training, and so we want all the commissions to attend that meeting. Jen, we haven't set up the first meeting yet. Not yet. Right. We haven't set up the meeting because we haven't appointed the commission, so that'll be the first.
Tomorrow
we'll set up the meeting. And I know some of the folks are here, so if you're on the Parks and Arts Commission and I read your name, could you stand up? I know Tom and Tom and...
That's it. Thanks for volunteering.
2 Toms on 1 commission, so that'll be...
As soon as we vote, we'll just say, well,
man,
once.
Tom B.
That's right. So we got the Tom. Any other comments? Discussion not hearing, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, there we go. Now we'll go forward, so. Resolution 17-231.
Resolution number 17-231, City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington. A resolution of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington regarding finalization of the Trutina First Edition plat located in portions of the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter and government lots 6 and 7 in Section 10, Township 25 North, Range 45 East, WM, Liberty Lake, Washington, file 2015.PL0001A.
Wow.
Radiant's hard to viewer.
So sorry for that. I clarified.
Thank you.
Yes.
I got the square inch.
So the tradition consists of 6.12 acres in size, and you can go ahead and throw up a map here, they'll give a little relation. It contains 29 lots plus tracks and private streets. All applicable conditions from the preliminary plat have been met, or a performance guarantee will be in place prior to recording, and it's in conformance with all applicable land use controls. So this is the new Wellington Parkway off of Harvard now, and the clubhouse and some of the multifamily senior housing up in here. You'll see the cottage housing that they already kind of have in there. The new area is around that, so that's First Edition.
Can you explain something to me, just for the sake of knowledge, okay? They already have existing buildings. They got a rec center. They got apartments, okay? What did they call that? If this is what we're dealing with this
That was
first.
part of Trutina Edition that you approved back in 2016.
Yeah, I understand that. What did they call it? I'm confused why this one's being referred to as Trutina First Edition when they have existing stuff already there.
Because of whatever the preliminary plat is named, so the preliminary plat is the Trutina preliminary plat. Your first final plat is always edition, second recorded one is the first edition, third would be second edition.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Learned something.
Any other discussion? I hear you all in favor of resolution.
I need a motion.
Sorry, I need to make a motion. Mayor, I move resolution number 17-231.
Second.
Moved in second. Further discussion. Resolutions, we just go straight to the vote, right? Yep. No discussion, all in favor of resolution 17-231, raise your right hand. I count 7 out of 7, is that correct?
Yep.
It's adopted. Second read ordinance is in.
Ordinance number 235D, City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington. An ordinance amending ordinance number 235 passed by the City Council on December 20th, 2016, entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, adopting a budget for the period January 1, 2017 through December 31, 2017, appropriating funds and establishing salary schedules for established positions.
So I'm here with any questions. So this is specifically on the additional resources that we needed for snow removal for this year. The first 4 items are items that we will incur costs no matter what kind of weather conditions we have for this year. The renting of a loader and 2 loaders and the graders, and the purchase of 2 snow blades, the de-ice, and the labor with Poe. That might be a little bit more variable than the last 2 weeks before.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion?
Is there, with the ending of 2017, will there have to be new agreements to continue the rental into 2018?
The rental agreements carry into 2018.
The rental agreements carry. How would you denote it in your budget of what section goes to 2017, what's carried on to 2018?
So in the budget, we're factoring in pretty much taking the rental period, the information that we have, and extending it out, projecting what that would look like into 18 too. So we know what the rental agreement says from January 1 to the end of March. And we know if we do the exact same thing next year, I know what the number is from November to the end of December. So we factor that in.
So we've included the whole year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Pardon? Need a motion?
Mayor, I move ordinance number 235B.
Second.
Moved in second. Further discussion? Not hearing any public comment on this ordinance? Not hearing any. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, I think they're at 7 out of 7, correct? Adopted. And ordinance 247.
Ordinance number 247, City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington. An ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington adopting a budget for the period January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2018, appropriating funds and establishing salary schedules for established positions.
Okay.
We're going to put up some additions. When the mayor's budget came out on October 17th, between then and now, there's been some
So we made some, we've added things as we had discussion to go along, and I didn't include them into the 18th budget. So what you have before you in the ordinance is what was originally presented to you in October. These are the items that we've been tracking. We'd ask you to make a motion to include them tonight, and then we'll get it incorporated in the 2018 budget. I know there was some discussion in finance. We had some specific discussions around some of the MDQs. We also had a discussion around election costs for 2018. It's not going to be up on the board, but increasing that number at a budget of $10,000, but we feel that might be a little low and want to increase that. So I'll look for council to make different motions. But I would need a motion for each of these items to include them or not include them, and we can talk about them each as we go forward.
So for discussion purposes, I move line item number 1, streets fund 110.
Second. Moving second.
Just for clarification, is that to include number 1 in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can I turn this one on? I can't
No, I
see
can't
it.
see.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think this one, yes.
Okay, so we have moved and seconded on item number 1, including the budget. Discussion, Andrew?
So, Andrew, in relation to this striping, I know that there's been a lot of talk about the concerns of the pathway and how wide it is and confusion of vehicles as they get east of Moulter up toward the development area, the apartment area. How will this modify that?
So this restriping plan takes our section of road that is from Fairway Lane out to the east end of our city limits. And most of the conflict that we've seen in the past has been in front of the Hawkstone development.
Correct.
We have a very wide section of road outside of the fog line that is often confused as another lane. It's a very wide stretch of pavement, it's unusual, and people mistake it for another lane. And it's led to confusion with drivers driving in parallel down the road next to each other in places they should not be. So what this project would do would recreate the existing pavement out there, remove the existing striping, and it would put a 3-lane section with bike lanes on the places that where we're having confusion.
So we have a center turn lane that we don't currently have.
So we'd have a center turn lane that would allow for left turning movements, bike lanes on the outside, and then travel ways each direction.
Question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Andrew, did I hear you say that what's budgeted in here is remove asphalt?
No, that was a mistake.
Okay.
Not removing asphalt. The asphalt stays.
I'd like to go on record that I was awake. Thank you.
So, $90,000 just sounds like a lot for striping. Can you tell us where those costs come from?
Well, when you go through and remove paving, or not paving, striping. I'm so used to just removing pavement. Anyway. So, a lot of that cost comes in the removal of the striping itself. We're going to be putting in new crosswalk striping. And there's some signage, but not much. That doesn't have much to it. But removing and then putting in all of that striping is expensive.
So, can you be a little bit more specific? I mean, there's labor, there's material, just a maybe percentage breakdown of the $90,000?
You know what, I don't have it in front of me. I can check an estimate here in the next couple days. We do have it all broken down.
Here's a contract that comes back, right? This is just
It does. This is just authorizing the budget. So you'll have a contract come back here in the first part of the year.
within this number, within the 90,000.
Yes.
Less than that, you anticipate less than 90,000, 90,000 less.
Yes.
But Andrew, when this, obviously this has to happen, I've seen lots of comments from citizens and problems and things like that. What kind of timeframe are you looking at having this done in the spring, I'm assuming?
So the striping plan and everything is done. I should have delivery from the engineer on everything on January 12th. We can bid it right after that, which is what we're anticipating doing. We have to wait for temperatures to be at a certain level before we can put the paint down without it being in danger of coming right back off. So I would anticipate in June. That's typically when striping temperatures come up enough to where we're consistent enough.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to vouch for the pedestrian safety improvements. As a cyclist, I've traveled the route many times, and yeah, the need to have clarification for motorists and cyclists, it's important in that area. So, thanks.
A number of citizens. Yeah.
So during the striping, you just paint over the old stripes? Because I've seen that done before.
Yeah, really, that's not a good long-term strategy. You can do it.
Okay.
But if you're wanting it to be a permanent fix, you really do just need to obliterate the existing striping.
Any other comments? Okay. Not hearing any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. That's added then, Arjun. Number 2 is Municipal Services Fund.
Mayor, I move Municipal Services Fund number 2331 to be on the budget for discussion.
Second. I'd just like clarification on it, if I may. I guess this is for the professional services to assist in our strategic long-term plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And where is the municipal services fund charged? Is that a city council fund, or is it a city fund that can be used for any kind of professional services by the city?
City council appropriates the dollars to spend out of all the funds. So that is the role the city council has. And the 17 budget created this fund, and we allocated to put $350,000 into this fund. So that was designed for facilities, for this long-term strategic plan. That's us putting money aside, and now we're appropriating dollars to spend it in 18.
I think at the time we discussed that was really if city council wanted to retain legal counsel of their own.
No, that's an advisory fund, and that's what.
That's a different fund?
Well, that's not a different fund, that's a different line item within your department.
Okay.
Okay. Other discussion? Chris?
Again, I think I've said this before, with regards to the dollar amount, that's a full-time employee. How many hours do we think we're going to need to retain somebody for this?
This is what we're discussing.
I know we had a couple options in front of us before, and I just think $100,000 is really.
So from
Too
the
much work.
workshop on November 21st, we received action to go forward with a full strategic plan, which would include master planning for 4 facilities, estimated at $25,000 each. I'm going to be brutally honest with you, that $100,000 estimate came from Greg Dorn at $25,000 each. I think it's low. If we retain a different consultant, I think we're going to be hard pressed at 100, and Katie and I have talked about that. So if you think 100's high, I just want to be brutally honest with you that I think it's actually a low amount.
So
And in comparison, Orchard Park's master plan, just the master plan for the parks, so not even a strategic plan for the facilities, was $50,000, and that was a tight budget.
So if I could weigh in on what Amanda said, it depends on how much depth and detail we want. If you start looking at every single facility we have and assessing its condition, you know, its roof, its HVAC, its plumbing, its electrical, There's multiple disciplines that go into putting these plans together. There's the land use planning effort, then there's the architectural and the building assessment. And so it's not just one consultant, it's a team of consultants that put this together. So this is a budget number, and Councilmember, what we can do is, maybe at our workshop, talk about how much depth and detail we want, because the more detail and depth we want, the more resources and the more cost.
Thank you.
So you want to put more into that one? No, but it is a good example of, we're not exactly entirely sure how depth we want to go, so there's $350,000 in that fund. Should be appropriated more, or based on discussion.
So this 100,000 brings it up to 350?
The 350 is already there. We set up the 2017 budget to park 350,000 out from the general fund to put it into this municipal facilities fund. And one of the recommendations from the 21st was, let's budget $100,000 to spend on strategic long-term planning and the facility plan.
So it's coming out of the 350?
It's coming out of 350. So there'll be 250 left.
Okay.
Okay, but the total 350 next year, or?
350 is what's in the budget right now, or what 350,000 is how much dollars are in that fund right now,
Okay.
actual dollars.
Was this an additional 100,000?
This 100,000 is to spend that 350.
That makes it-
100.
I buried $350,000.
That makes it easier for me to stomach,
Okay,
since,
thank you.
since it's not, basically, we've already allocated the cash in 17 for it. We're not taking another $100,000 out of our cash flow for this.
Got it.
That's a huge difference.
Mike?
I do recall Amanda making that comment in that meeting that it did run $50,000 on the other. My impression was that the $100,000 was a start. We did have $300,000 that we could tap into, that we could bring up the word that everybody loves. If it does run over that, make a budget adjustment.
Okay. Further discussion on this item? Hearing all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, there you go. 3.
We had a good example why we need new equipment tonight.
So I have a question for you, please, regarding item number 3. Over the years, we've taken a few thousand here, a few thousand there, a few thousand here, and have thrown it at this particular problem. And it's before us again, and we still haven't answered the problem, we haven't met the challenge, and now we're going to step up to 15,000. All right? What I personally would like to see happen is, let's solve the problem. Okay? Let's don't take 15,000 and just give it out in hopes that it fixes the problem. Okay? Because we've already spent, I don't know how many. Okay, let's just say 8,000. Okay, I don't know. But we've already spent that. And now we're talking about it again, brother. So if you would please, before we okay this, we want you to have the money in the budget. So that's not a problem, I think. Okay, at least that's my opinion. But what I do want is to see that we fix the problem. And if that costs 25, come tell us that we're going to fix it this time, and it's going to be 25,000. All right? Less, whatever we got to do to fix it. If we need to soundproof the room, lower the ceiling, you know, whatever needs to be done to improve this for a lasting period of time so we don't see it every year. I appreciate your help in that matter.
And I will say, when RJ went to another city that just completely redid theirs, their price that they paid was $10,000.
They were in that $10,000 range.
And he's also
we would
seeking
look
out-
to bring somebody like that,
Right.
a company in, just to say, here it is, what do you want?
He's been working to seek out professional services to make sure this is done right. So I'll move number 3 for $15,000 to be included into the budget for AV equipment and software for council chambers.
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Not hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there you go. Number 4, RJ.
Number 4, currently there's already, in the budget is $20,000 for GSI, but the new contract, their new fee for their support is $25,000, so we need to increase by another 5.
So for discussion purposes, I move number 4 for $5,000 for GSI.
Say it.
Chris?
Got a comment. So I know I asked about this, I think it was at the last meeting about, why the increase? And very interestingly enough, on December 7th, there was an article, and I only have a small snapshot of it, about the county and their budget. And it says, they noted that Greater Spokane Incorporated also took a reduction, while some other outside agencies, including Washington State University Extension Spokane, received the same amounts as last year. So the county is paying less in 2018 than they were in 17, but we're paying more. So does anybody have any idea how their rate structures are put together? Is it by our population? How do they put that together? How do we end up paying that much more when the county's paying less?
Well, the county was paying a lot of money.
Well, $5,000 is a lot of money to us.
Let me try to answer the question.
Sorry.
Well, the county was paying, I think, in the neighborhood of $75,000 or so $1,000, right? There was discussion as to, and then they're down to $63,000. I don't remember all the exact detailed numbers. I just saw them again yesterday. City of Spokane was at the $200,000 level, and they're down to, they were at $53,000 and going up to, in their, just actually their last night's council meeting or the coming council meeting, going back up to kind of where they were at. So the numbers have fluctuated. The goal was to give kind of a base rate and look at 4 different aspects of benefit that each of the communities receive. And in our particular case, economic development, the basic membership fees, and the lobbying is immense benefit to us. And to me, it was a good deal. And then I think, in the city of Spokane Valley they're in the mix. Their dues are going to, or their contributions are going up significantly. So it's all in the fluctuation of the budgets, but those people that showed like the guys somewhat of a decrease. I know that in Todd's conversation with the commissioner yesterday, Commissioner French, that while they took a decrease, they're probably contributing some more money in other ways. I'm not sure, but that's the way it is.
I just find it hard that we're going to believe that we're going to get a 25% increase in the services based on a 25% increase in our fees.
Well, I think.
That's my comment.
Mike?
Question for the benefit of myself and the citizens. I think, Mayor, you might have answered part of this. Is there a flat fee for each city, and then does it get tied into the size of the city by chance that determines what the donation might be? How is that determined?
There is a kind of minimum type contribution of, I think it's $10,250 for just membership, and then there's a kind of a tier structure, which Todd was here, for economic development, for the lobbying part, and for the special projects. In our case, the benefit to us is for our companies, overall globally, it's not a transactional chamber, it's a lobbying legislative type chamber for all of our companies, Itron, Safeco, Acrofab, Alltech. They all benefit from that, all of our local companies. They have extensive work with, they've created Inland Northwest, NWAC, the Aircraft Association of Manufacturers, and they participate in the leadership of there. And then the lobbying side is immense to us. If you look at their lobbyist, Jim Hedrick, their lobbying on our behalf over the years have led to our lift money, have led to retention and kind of a mitigation of some of the onerous regulations that could have been imposed upon our companies. And from a perspective of just the roads and our participation and where we've gotten so far with our legislative agenda, there's been immense. We're going to benefit, if everything comes to fruition this year, $26.5 million, pretty decent return on our investment for that help. So I'm very big proponent of the GSI. Katie?
Just to answer Mike's question, so there is a base rate, and then what Todd brought was you can step it up. And so this isn't the base, this is one step above the base for their services. And so they've taken their financing plan, if you will, their rate structure to Cheney, to Airway Heights, because Airway Heights minimally participated, and they're wanting for there to be equity. And so this represents, I think we're one up from the bottom of their basic service package. I don't have the exact figures though in front of me, Mike, to
That's
answer
okay
that
for me.
question.
I've always supported our involvement with the GSI, and I appreciate the explanation for not only my benefit, but the citizens also. I understand the breakdown. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just observe, I appreciate the services provided by GSA. I think of them as a regional approach to business development. We are, I believe, as a city committed to development and support of businesses in our community. And this organization, GSI, exists to create that same drive to build business and economy in our region. I believe that we are an important part of that region, and our contribution represents direct benefit to our community as well as our greater region. I believe the amount in question, $5,000, is reasonable based on our budget.
I'll just kind of agree with that, Dan, and also add that the $25,000 total that we're spending, I think, is well leveraged dollars for what the benefit that GSI brings to our community. That'd be very difficult for us as a city to duplicate a similar level of economic benefit, not only on a regional approach, but just the little things that it brings to our businesses on a daily basis. So, be a strong supporter, continued support of GSI.
Just to be clear, it's not that I don't support GSI or value their services. I don't support the increase, given that other entities in the county are not paying as much as they were last year.
Then, no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Number 5.
So, Mayor, this is the discussion that we had back in October on Orchard Park to include the concession stand into the addition to the total cost of the project.
I move number 5 for $140,000 to be included into the budget for Orchard Park concession stand for discussion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, further discussion.
I just want to recognize the amenity as a portion of the park project. The concession stand that is operated at Pavilion Park is something that creates an ability for people to, I'd say, linger or spend more time. It's a permanent fixture that gives, I'd say, an ability to provide hospitality and to arrange for events which otherwise you couldn't have at the facility. I think it's reasonable and equitable to have a comparable facility for the Orchard Park project as the northern portion of the city. That's why I value this proposed budget item. Thanks.
Further discussion?
Yes, we anticipate that the concession stand is going to be comparable to the one at Pavilion Park.
I think that, Andrew,
It's cold shell though, still needs to be completed.
Yeah, so it is a 10 by 20, so it's a CXT building. The concession stand is an additional section that is on the back of the Restman facility. It would be a 10 by 20 facility. It would have the ability to put in sinks, minimal storage, would have roll-up doors for serving concessions, lighting on the inside, but yeah, it comes as mostly a cold shell.
I think, if I recall correctly, I think we have some equipment storage at Pavilion Park. Are we anticipating the same thing for Orchard Park? And if so, what are we going to do about equipment storage there?
So we have right now a schedule set up for a bidding strategy for Orchard Park. We want to make sure that we can stay within our budget. The maintenance facility is one of the items on that schedule, so we have space set aside in the park, and it is designed so that we have a maintenance facility. And if we can afford it, we will be building a maintenance facility.
I will say this, excuse me. If it comes to a concession stand or maintenance, we need the maintenance. Okay? So when you get down to that point of making a decision, please bring it back so we know where we're going to stand on it, and we're going to make a decision for you one way or the other. But at this point, I think we've learned a lesson that maintenance and the storage of maintenance equipment is a priority for the city, especially with the more equipment that we keep buying. So if you would remember that when the time comes, I'd appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Andrew, while you're there, memory serves correctly, this is of course going a couple months back. We approved an additional 20 grand or ish, somewhere around there for additional design work. And it seems like we're expecting to see that sometime around now. Is that right?
That has already gone through the council, I believe.
Was that the last meeting when I
haven't seen it.
I missed,
As far
I
as
missed
the
our
invoice
last
or the invoice?
the additional concession stand and the,
Yeah, the additional lead agreement should have already gone through.
no, the agreement went through, but I thought we were going to actually see a design about how it would start breaking out the.
No, we are in the middle of design right now.
Right. For some reason, I was remembering that we were going to see a design somewhere around now, so we're voting on the budget, we have a better idea of concession stand.
You know what, I don't remember that, but I can check.
I'll go back and look too. When will we expect to see a design and start seeing some sort of bid schedule?
So our design is scheduled to complete the first week of February. That's what we approved. So once the design is complete, we can bring it back to council. I can try and bring something back earlier, but I wouldn't advise it because the documents are going to be somewhat incomplete and a bit difficult to understand.
Yeah, makes sense. It does.
I remember when we went back at the meeting, because I went back and looked at the minutes too, what I saw was in there is the 140,000, bring it back for consideration, include 2018 budget, but that the actual, when we see it, the bid that would be paired with the bid document, so we wouldn't see that until 18. Okay, perfect.
Good.
Question, Mr. Mayor. Do you recall what it cost us to build a concession stand
So
there? And I know it was part of an overall thing, but, because I know when this 140 came up, there was a question that was raised by some council members. Did it really cost 140,000?
we're hoping to bring it under that. And everything that I've looked at so far with going to a CXT building and a few other things, we're able to have some fairly significant cost savings.
So you have an approximate what it ran us
We
for the
should be able
concessions?
to bring it under $100,000.
And do you think that's probably what we spent on concession stand?
Are you talking about Pavilion Park?
Pavilion Park.
That was
Oh.
300,000.
So that was the overall project?
Yeah.
Correct. That include the
I'm just saying,
restrooms?
do we have an approximate what just the concession stand ran?
You know what?
Has to
I
try to
don't-
give a comparison.
I have the number broken out, but I don't have it.
It was,
Thank you.
we went in with 250, right? I mean, for the restroom, and then it went to 300 total.
I think
See,
it
I
was,
recall $50,000.
Yeah.
That sounds
That's right, I
right.
didn't want to say that, but I want to see if that was the number. Thank you.
It's a lot easier to build from scratch or new than it is to remodel. Any other discussion on this?
just for a point of clarification, so the design will be done in February. We'll bring the designs back, but we won't have pricing. We'll go out to bid, get pricing, and then bring it back before you award the contract.
Will the designs potentially, while they change the cost of the concession stand facilities, as part of the design, is moving some of the buildings a little bit or reconfiguring some buildings? Is this with the new configuration or with the full configuration?
No, it would be with the new configuration as directed by
Is
the
that far enough along that we have an idea of new configuration?
We're not quite there yet.
So how are we, sorry man, I'm just trying to understand. So how do we have a budget number if we don't have a new configuration?
Yeah, once we have a design that we can show council in February, we will bring it back to you.
I'm saying, how does this budget work with the new configuration? If we have no idea what the new configuration is going to be, and that could wildly change the cost of.
How sound is $140,000? How do we know that?
This 140 is sound. We're going to make sure you give us a budget and we are going to design and stay inside of that budget.
Let me see if I can add a little bit of help. I hope. So we have a design concept that has a new configuration that includes a concession stand. They're putting the final touches on that design with CXT. Our challenge was trying to get the whole project back into budget. So that's what they're doing, right? You get it into budget, keep it within budget. We don't have that final design, but I think we have a concept design. We can share the concept with you, just know that it's still in design, so it's not complete. So that's going to show you the
You have a
footprint.
pretty good idea.
We do.
So the reason why it's a little complicated is when we start moving buildings and utilities, and it's all of the other, site work and all that. So it's not just moving the buildings, it's adjusting all the costs associated with that as well. So is that confusing?
Well, the part I'm still then not understanding is the 140 for specific for a concession stand, or is 140 for additional site work for moving buildings around those? Is that where the overall project budget went up 140 with the new changes? So it's not necessarily tied specifically to a concession stand, it's tied to reconfiguration of buildings.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
So some of the 140 is tied to moving some buildings around. Most of that is due to the concession stand.
Okay. And I'm a lot more comfortable with that answer. Well, anyway, we haven't awarded a contract. I know we're kind of talking details that I like the idea of up with budget 140, but I mean,
Right, so it's difficult to put the whole 140 on just the concession stand
That's
because
my point,
that dollar amount incorporated the modifications to the site.
They need to happen. We're reconfiguring. I get it. I just want to make sure it's not tagged for a concession stand.
Correct.
Budget for that project went up 140.
You could move the buildings around the way you guys wanted and not build the concession stand.
Right, yeah. Perfect. Sorry, thank you.
Further discussion? Not hearing, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Number 6.
Mayor, I move number 6 for $1,300,000 in the general fund for trailhead irrigation for discussion.
Second.
Moved and seconded for the trailhead irrigation, discussion, RJ, anything?
That's what should be easy.
Pardon?
That's what should be easy.
Pretty self-explanatory at this point.
We've had this discussion here at the last meeting, I believe, so.
And I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. I think that the master plan and the strategic plan are vital for what we do with everything, to include trailhead. But I think that it would be detrimental to us to not include this into the budget for the sake of, if we do move forward and it's not there. It's not saying we have to do it, but we have it there if we do need to move forward with that irrigation system.
Further discussion?
I have one question, disregard.
Further discussion? Not hearing, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Tourism Promotion Fund. Number 8.
So we're jumping to number 8, I think 7 got taken out.
Oh, yeah, didn't I? Yeah. 7 got moved down and renumbered, and I forgot to put it back.
Okay.
Oh.
Just want to clarify, we're not missing
No,
something.
we're not missing 7.
All right, so for the schedule, we're gonna move number 8 for $4,320 for the Tourism Promotion Fund 115.
Second.
So I apologize, I was moving stuff up and down on this spreadsheet, trying to take more of the maybe the easier stuff on top. And there was a 7, it became probably number 11, 10, and
Just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
you did not miss it. Okay. I apologize. So, the resources needed. So number 1, there were more revenue that we got in the later half of this year to provide more resources to fund the tourism promotion grants. So it's hard sometimes to predict the revenue coming in because the bulk of the revenue comes in those October and November months. So 4320 is the award. Additional resources, you already approved the grants tonight. There's sufficient funds in there to support the grants.
And this is an allocation for the funds that we already, I think, basically approved tonight. Number 1, and number 2 is there's also some money left over maintained in that fund, but we don't spend it all.
Correct. Yes, there is a cash balance left.
And this comes from the hotel overnight tax.
Correct.
Right, okay. Further discussion? Not hearing, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there we go. Medical reimbursement number 9, RJ?
You want to push it?
I'll make the motion for number 9 for $25,000 for medical reimbursement fund 502.
Second.
So when we had the police negotiations and we settled with them, it was to increase the amount that's in our, what we call the bridge, the medical reimbursement fund. So originally we had $50,000 to cover the additional, promise for that would be another $25,000 on top of that.
Okay. Further discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there we go.
Well done, Katie.
Pardon? Did I miss something?
No, he was just.
Oh. Number 10.
So there's nothing to make a motion, I'm sorry. So this was a little bit interesting in the sense of, we actually, in the current budget, there are 2 projects, the two signal on Appleway and the Harvard Road Gap, the resurfacing. Those 2 projects, due to TIBA not getting grant funding for those, we did get it for the bridge resurfacing, but because of circumstances have changed, we no longer need to fund those 2 projects, but also eliminates a revenue source from TIB because we didn't get the grant. We have had discussions around doing just one signal on Appleway, pass signal, and I think estimates are $600,000. So the motion that I would be looking for if we're going to do to fund this one is to do that, is to fund signal at $600,000. The revenues would have to come from what we already collect from the utility tax, and then another $200,000 would need to be allocated from the general fund to cover that.
So I'll move number 10 for discussion for the $600,000 for signal at signal.
Second.
So you're talking about $600,000 for a set of lights? Correct?
Correct.
Any other work tied up into this besides the traffic signals?
I'll let the Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, this is for constructing the signals. So you've got construction management, there's contingency there. But other than that, within the signal zone.
We're not putting in new lanes of any kind?
And it's all plumbed, correct, for the signals, that section, when we did Appleway, they plumbed.
Appleway doesn't get cut.
And sorry, I was just gonna say, and if you'll note in the section to the right, it has a section that says discussion to include looking at the priorities for the north ball fields in regards to 2018 budget. That is noted in there.
That is, no, sorry, that was not.
We haven't.
So that is something that has been discussed through council, was what about the north field. So they can have that discussion part of this, or we can have that discussion as a separate item.
Well, I would just say that, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about public safety being our priority. And if we were to look at, if we have to do one or the other, if we're picking between the two, I would say that public safety is essentially number one in my mind. I don't want to speak for the rest of the council. But that would be a priority if we had to look at the two projects.
And the other thing, I look at the signal as it's a 20 to 30-year deal.
Yeah.
Right? Mike?
My concern with this is that you guys have drummed into me since day one, public safety, public safety, public safety. Do I need to say it one more time? One more time, thank you. If two signals were critical that we do that, why don't we do our best to do two signals? Yes?
I'll answer that question. So we had an application for both signals. Our traffic report supports both signals. Between the two, Signal is the better location than Matson because of accident records and so on and so forth. Our goal is to resubmit for Matson and get funding because we're hopeful that TIB is going to change the eligibility requirements so that it's eligible. They've been they've contacted Andrew numerous times to try to get us the funding for this project, and they're not able to do it. But they do plan to change their RCW or their bylaws that would make Matson eligible. So we're kind of at a strategic level, wanting to move forward with Signal in the near term. You know, the lead time on these traffic signals is all of 6-8 months, something like that. You have to order them, you have to come in, and you have to install them. So even if you make the decision to fund this today, it's probably going to be towards mid-year to late next year. Well, probably June to September, sometime in there.
to have it installed by
Mid to late summer. So by moving forward on this one gets that going forward while we submit an application for Matson. Hopeful that they're changing their requirements so that it's eligible. So I hope that's not too much information, but a lot of thought went into how to do this. Whether or not the ball fields is the ball field discussion is another discussion for the council. But we had several $100,000 already in the budget for this project.
400,000.
400, well, for both.
Right.
So roughly 200,000, right?
Yes, my understanding was 400,000, 200. No, it's not too much information because it's the same what you've shared with us in the past. I do appreciate that. But what I'm trying to look at is maybe some common sense comes into this. That if both signals are $1.2 million, if we put in the budget, and that's all it is, to fund both of those, if we already have $400,000 that we're going to go to those signals, $200,000 each, then we have $680,000 sitting in this other fund. If we were to say, let's put all of that towards the lights, and we move ahead with the one, it doesn't take away the possibility to try for the grant for the second one. Is that correct? And if it doesn't come through, then we've thought ahead that we do have the funds to put the second light in. I just seem to think that a second light for safety is more important than another parking lot or a field developed north of the school. Tell me how that is a priority in my mind over public safety.
I'm not going to tell you that.
I know you're not. Yeah.
But I would say that, I mean, a lot of factors go into bidding, economies of scale and everything. It's just that if you were going to so what I hear you saying is you'd rather fully fund both signals than to build the ball field. I think that's what I heard you say.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
so,
simple reason is that public safety is number one.
correct.
That takes care of public safety being number one. And putting in a field north of the school and a parking lot, I don't see where that is advantageous at this point for public safety.
That's your call. That's the council's call as to whether or not they fund the ball field. I would just say, I'm hopeful that they'll fund Madsen, and I'd hate to give away that potential outside revenue to fund a traffic signal.
I think, one of the things I think is, and just in my thought, is that, taking this incremental step, when we put in the new intuitive lights at Country Vista and Appleway and the right turn arrow and all that stuff, it made a huge difference in the capacity, how the safety of the traffic there, the backups and access. The access problem still exists a little bit with signal, and I think that's the focus here. And the second thing is, when you do that, then you also sit down and say, did that help alleviate some of the issues in that? And so to do them both at the same time and say, well, we'll just do this one and this one. I think an incremental approach, especially when you're looking at ordering the mass polls, I mean, I know it takes 6 months just to get one. So you're looking at the end of August, first part of September for that signal. Let's let it cook for 6 months and then look at in 2018 the Madsen signal. But that's totally my thoughts.
No, believe me, I understand exactly what you're saying. If we would have got the TIB money for the 1.2 million, would we have postponed putting in the second light, or we would move ahead on both lights?
We would have moved ahead with both because we had the funding.
That's my point. Thank you for helping make my point.
But we like to spend other people's money.
I know.
And we have to spend that money in order to get the money, so.
A couple of things that I would like to find out about, if possible, would be, they have the RV park that's going to be going in. That's just what, east of Signal?
It is just east of Signal.
Okay. And their primary route to Appleway will be what? Dumping out onto Appleway?
Correct, a direct driveway onto Appleway.
Onto Appleway.
Going into it, there's a turn lane going into it.
Okay. So how is all that going to tie into the signal at Signal, okay? And how does traffic get delayed for people coming in and out of there, coming back to the next available road, which is Madsen? So I would like to see a higher elevation view of how all these things will fit before we actually make a decision on what's important to fund, because we don't want to find out down the road that we should have thought about the RV place or, the traffic instruction.
Amanda, have they designed their entrance road to the RV park?
It's not in conflict with anything we're doing with the signals.
It's not a matter of being in conflict, sir. It's a matter of, are we taking that into consideration on new traffic that'll be dumped right at a signal?
Getting into
Okay, if
and
that
out
signal stops, goes to red, and then you got backed up with people trying to come out the RV park with Madsen flow, or the Appleway flow past Madsen, okay? Are we really doing any good? Okay, or should we, as advised, try to do both lights and solve a problem? Okay, so I'm just asking for a little bit of an overview to make sure that what we're going to do is appropriate today, tomorrow, and next year. That's all. Thank you.
Amanda, when do you think the RV park will come?
We anticipate issuing decision very end of this year, beginning of 18, with the permit subsequent to that. Overall construction timeline, did he give a timeline on it?
I haven't got a timeline.
Yeah, I don't recall a timeline, but basically you're talking about small buildings and a whole lot of pavement and landscaping, so I don't believe it'd be that
I
long.
know they've been working on it. I didn't know if, if he was kind of thinking at the end of September, is it going to be ready for summer or be summer 2019?
Maybe summer. I haven't gotten an updated timeline from him.
Okay.
Mayor, why I brought that up is for the simple reason under notes it says discussed, including looking at the priority of the north ball field in regards to the 218 budget. If that wasn't there, I assure you it would have brought up the discussion that I did bring up. It seems to me that there's two things we're looking at here. One is moving ahead to 600,000 towards signal, and then just by the fact that it is discussed discussion includes looking at the priority of the North Ball Field. If that's in there, why are we looking at that? I assume we're looking at getting the 200,000 from there.
No, part of that is, well, that has been discussed. I heard the discussion on there from different members of council that this is a possibility. That's why the discussion is there.
So help me understand why we put that there for tonight.
Because that is some of the feedback I've been hearing about, do we do the North Field? Do we take money from the North Field to that?
Thank you.
That's not a recommendation of staff. That's what
Thank you.
we recommend.
So can we break that piece out into another line item?
So I would make it two
decrement?
different motions. Make the motion if you want to do this, or do the whole thing, and then make a motion to remove the other one.
My personal preference would be, let's talk about the signal, boom, and then line item 13, 14, and 15, whatever it is, discuss, do we take the line item out for the fields? So they're two separate issues.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Well, before we go to a motion, I would just like to discuss your point, please. The whole idea of having the discussion regarding the north field area is because it's a possible source of revenue that can be applied toward the lights. I'm not really interested in making it a second or a third or anything else, because all we're going to do is, we can't say, take it out of the budget, okay, because it's already there. It's got to be put someplace. That's $600,000 for the fields. That's already in the budget, right? We don't want to vote to take it out. That was your words, to take it, to vote it off. Okay, we don't want to do that because it's still a way of revenue. The only thing you can do, in my way of thinking, is say, yeah, put it in the budget, hold it, but we're not going to spend it, because anything that has to come, anything to be spent on that would have to come back to the council anyway. So I just think we're going through extra steps of separating them and doing something else with it. What was your plan to do with it after it was made number 13?
Well, I guess my thought is that there are two separate, they're two separate issues. Do we want to fund both, or do we want to fund none, or do we want to fund one? And to me, funding the signal, like Mike said, is priority over funding building fields north of the school. So I would like to see,
I agree with you.
I would like to see the allocation for the fields come out of the budget
And go where?
and be replaced with the signal.
Ah,
Signal in Madison.
Yes.
No.
okay, so we really don't know where we're going to put
No,
it.
to help pay for the 200 out of the 600,000. We already know 400 is coming from utility tax.
So part of this is what you're looking at is, if this is the motion to do this one signal, and it's $600,000, and a separate discussion is this: do you still want to include this into the 2018 budget? It doesn't remove the project; it just puts it into still in the capital facilities plan. I'm not hearing you want to remove that from the capital facilities plan, but not to fund that for 18. So
It's a free money for that.
Well, here, if I could,
Could you speak up, you please?
I can.
Thank you, sir.
I can try. It's not my strong suit.
Nice suit, though.
Pretend I'm yelling. The kids. We have different households. Don't get started.
Okay, let's go. Coming on, we want you down at 10 o'clock, so.
So, I would have no problem taking $200K out of the general fund and allocating it to a signal at signal. I would prefer put a number 13 on as do we think it's more important to fund a second signal at Madison and reallocate the North Ball Field funds to the $600K to put an additional signal at Madison?
Now you're talking.
And then, or do we agree that we should hold off on the signal at Madison and continue to fund? And for sake of discussion, I'd say let's focus on, is a signal at signal important? Take the ball fields out, take the signal at Madison out, and say, do we agree that it's important enough to put $200K extra out of the general fund towards it?
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud, okay.
Let me take a
But
crack at
somehow or
that.
another, I understand it.
I think we're ready as a group to recognize a 600K item number line 10, supporting, funding traffic control signal at Signal.
I mean, you could take each one at a time.
So I'm gonna say that as a motion, then I move that line 10 recognize 600K.
There's already.
Supported, and so if it has, want to make sure that it's clear for whatever had previously been observed. So the action 10, line 10, 600K in the amount, traffic signal control at Signal, the intersection Signal and Apple Way, add the budget.
Period.
So that's the motion, that's the discussion that's taking place, right?
That's correct.
So no more further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there you go. Okay, now we're on to number 11.
I move to include number 11, building and equipment contingency or police capital fund 334.
Second.
So we've had this discussion in the past, this is to put money aside for into a reserve fund.
Yeah, since I brought this up originally, maybe I'll comment on it. As we talked about, public safety being our number one priority, you heard it one more time.
Thank you.
Anyway, my idea was to make sure that we have funds reserved for, to replace the vehicles in the police department. We also discussed a little later on, maybe expanding that to cover other equipment that the city owns. And I guess my problem with doing that is that by establishing a replacement reserve for police vehicles, we're prioritizing that fund and how those funds are going to be utilized. If we just establish a general fund that is not prioritized, and that those funds might be used for something else that we don't want to use for. Now, I'm really open to establishing a fund for, let's say, 2 years of the chief's schedule for replacement of the cars. And maybe that's what, $200,000 or something like that. Let's set aside $200,000 so that if and when we do have a downturn in the economy, that those funds are there for that purpose specifically. And I think it represents sound financing and good financial planning in order to do that. In businesses, we have depreciation that provides for replacement of assets. We don't have that in the city, so I'd really like to set aside those funds for that purpose.
Bob, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Just talking about the cars, isn't there already $126,000 in your capital budget? Where did I get the $126,000?
There's $125,000 for building contingency, so if we have a problem with building.
Now, I'm talking about a specific reserve, specifically for police vehicles. And let's start it off maybe with $100,000 or $200,000. And if you want to put other funds in for other equipment, replacement of other equipment, I think we can do that too. But I really think that should be part of a strategic long-term plan on how we're going to replace our assets, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to pay for it. And I'm trying to get a jump on that by saying, okay, let's start off and let's do it with a couple of the police cars.
I would venture to guess, and Chief, I mean, I know they're $30-some thousand a piece or so plus equipment.
They're a little bit more than that.
Only if you bought Fords.
Thank you. But, you know, if, like we have 125 in our contingency fund for building, if we had 125 for the police cars, that would be a start towards that point. We have 125 for our other equipment, lawnmowers, backhoes, things like that. So we have at least 3 funds for kind of the equipment. And I think this gets to the strategic plan, or one of the initiatives would be sustainability. And so, I mean, that gives us, you know, tonight we could set up one for equipment, one for the cars, and one for, and continue the building fund, or whatever that is, right?
over there, so if you're looking at two other aspects, please.
That's what I'm
Other
thinking.
vehicles.
Then you capitalize something, put something away.
I think, Mr. Mayor, if it's possible, you know, I appreciate where you're trying to go, Bob, all right? And I don't disagree on the surface. But what I do want to say is that this is another example of putting the cart before the horse, okay? And by your own admission, you're trying to get a jump, okay, on the strategic planning. I think this is a prime opportunity to say, hold up, the chief's set for his every year or every 2-year rotation of cars, okay? That gives us time to plan. That gives us time to get involved in the strategic plan, to get a big overview of what's going on, and then allocate monies as it's needed. Not drawing, well, we could start with 125 or maybe 2 and add. No, that's not consistent with what we're trying to plan. What we're trying to plan is the strategic plan, which will then filter down to exactly what we want to do with this fund. So I agree with you. I just think it needs to go into its proper time frame. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I just don't think that it's premature, you know, I think it's sound financial planning, whether you do it now or next week or next month or next year or 2 years from now. It's still sound financial planning, however you look at it. So I would suggest that we do that.
Okay. All right, anything else?
RJ, just with regard to the motion, this is just to create the fund. This is not, the motion wasn't to fund that
Create it,
fund.
but then after we create it, then if we are gonna create it now, then we want to.
There'd be a second motion there. So right now, that you could create the fund, but not necessarily fund it, correct? Okay.
No, he just said and fund it, didn't you?
Well, there'd be a second motion.
There'd have to be a second motion.
So there's no use creating one if you're not going to fund it, right?
I'm just saying for clarification with regard to the motion that's on the table.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I would like to hear from the chief about his thoughts of the need for this. You know, clearly this is his wheelhouse.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, at the last council meeting, we had this discussion, we talked about the vehicle rotation plan, that I have more than a 5-year plan in place for our vehicle rotation plan. You know, the mayor and council have been generous each year when I've asked for continuing that rotation plan that's been funded in the annual budget. And so, as in 2018, there's $55,000 in the police department budget to purchase a replacement vehicle. 2019, there'll be an ask for 2 patrol cars. So I absolutely understand the concept. We've been doing that through the annual budget anyway. To me, what that would mean is that instead of $55,000 coming out of my car line item, that $55,000 would go into a capital fund, and so that one line item would be reduced by $55,000, and this would increase by $55,000. So I'm not.
That's not. No, there would just be stocking away 2 cars. You still have 55,000. You're plus.
So I guess buy lots of cars.
I guess my
I mean, I guess what the thing is that it's been consistently budgeted. It's planned for. I have a 10-year vehicle rotation plan from this year. I know how many cars I'm going to need that period of time. It's budgeted for.
I think the rotation plan is working.
Correct.
We haven't, because
There's no
it's.
question, I'm not being critical of that at all.
Yeah, it's what we're talking about is putting money aside in case bad things happen. Pull money aside. So.
right, I knew what the answer. I knew what the answer was. I wanted to kind of remind everybody of what the chief's thoughts were last time we discussed this. The point being, I agree with Odin that I think we need to get a strong strategic plan in place so we can truly determine what this dollar amount should be, and not necessarily point it to the police vehicles. He has a great plan in place, but more for the overall capital plan.
the money's not going anywhere, so if I could say that. I agree with the strategic plan having something long-term on there, and I think we can work and develop that. The money's still gonna come from the same place when we make that decision. It's there. We're not spending it.
We're not increasing the money, we're just taking it out of the general fund and putting it in a reserve fund.
As much as people.
So it's just
love
an
me
accounting
for
entry,
dollars.
debit and credit.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I'll throw out there that I very much agree with the concept. I hope it comes back as a priority in our strategic plan, only as the sheer fact of Bob's point that earmarking certain dollars and maybe not be for the next 10 years, but allocating maybe over a 2-year cycle, that we need to have better understanding of what the chief's, it sounds to me like what is the chief's 10-year plan, and say, perfect, we always want to be funded 2 years out, or some sort of concept like that. We always want to be funded 4 years out. I would hope that would come into our strategic planning for whatever this initiative ends up being. So it sounds to me like this, I love the concept. I also just kind of agree that it's a little bit early to vote on a dollar amount. If we're going to vote on starting a fund, we may as well start throwing dollar amounts at it.
Further discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that's failed, so.
Point. I'm sorry, Mayor, just a point, please. We got about 8 minutes left.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, we got a lot more discussion to talk about for the budget before we pass it. So I would like to, with your permission, sir, put before the council whether or not we want to extend and try to get through it this evening, or do we want to call it at 10 and reschedule a special meeting to consider passing the budget ordinance? And we need to get this decided within the next 8 minutes. Thank you.
Personally, based on how I'm feeling right now, I don't know if I can go much longer. And I know we have a lot of discussion. I think it's gonna work. I don't even think if we extend, we're gonna finish tonight.
So,
I would agree with that.
would someone make a motion on what we do, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, a motion to call a special meeting next week, specifically around the budget conversation.
Why don't you just motion to adjourn, or not to...
What we can do is we can just, we can end the meeting at 10, because if there's not a motion to extend the meeting ends at 10.
So a motion to extend the meeting at a later date would be better, because then you have to notice it if you have a special meeting next week.
How should we word it?
You still have to
Right,
notice it, don't you?
you'll still have a special notice meeting relative to whatever the date, may be.
Not if you extend this meeting. You're not adjourning this meeting.
Right, but you'll have notice with regards to that meeting that you'll give to the public relative to that date.
It's a whole different notice than having a special.
Right, you'll continue the meeting, but there'll be notice with regards to that meeting. So I think the mayor's point is, you want a motion to continue the meeting to another date next week, whatever that date may be. You need to name the date that you want to have it.
Week after Christmas.
Come on, we'll do it.
So today is Tuesday,
How
could we
about
do it?
between New Year's and Christmas? Of course, yeah, between New Year's and Christmas.
So I just want to do a quick assessment of who's going to be here the week after Christmas. Is there a possibility we could extend it to another night this week, as opposed to the week after Christmas? I know I can change my plans, but I was going to be out the week after Christmas. I know RJ.
Does that give us enough time to give notice though? If we did it this week?
Maybe
We could do it
24 hours.
Thursday.
So that, if we could continue the meeting on Thursday?
Thursday works for me.
Thursday works.
Continue this meeting to Thursday, the 21st?
5:30?
5 o'clock.
6.
6 o'clock?
No.
6 o'clock
It's up to you.
for their needs.
6 o'clock. On the 21st.
The 21st at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
So, motion to continue this meeting to Thursday, the 21st at 6 o'clock.
Second. Next step.
Don't we just have one item left?
No.
No.
We have the whole budget.
Okay, Okay.
These are amendments to the
Yeah,
budget.
we've got like 6
All right, I was
MVQs
just
still
looking at
that
this. Yeah,
we have
okay, very good.
Is there anything specific that would help bring, or be ready for on Thursday night?
Just your MVQs.
Just the MVQ?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I spoke out of
MVQs.
turn.
No.
Is that
So, but
MVQ?
it's just specifically, the discussion was gonna deal with specifically the MVQ. Is that?
It's my
I
understanding.
want to make sure there isn't anything like, okay, we're gonna talk about this.
And just for purposes of clarification, I'm not trying to, trying to be helpful here. So number 12 is a driving range net. we're gonna withdraw that from consideration for the budget. Or do you want to leave it on there? This is, we're funding.
We're not ready for this.
Right.
We're not ready for that. Right.
Very good. We'll see you Thursday, huh?
Before we leave, what we should do procedurally with regard to the actual budget ordinance 247 is make a motion to continue that consideration of that ordinance to the next meeting.
So in regards to ordinance number 247, I move that we continue the discussion to Thursday the 21st at 6 o'clock.
Move second. Further discussion, I hear all good, aye?
Aye.
Aye. So we go up to the third.